Can I have your attention, please? We'll be starting up shortly. Good evening and welcome to the Lowell Planning Board meeting for Monday, May 16th, 2016. Tonight we have two continued business matters on. We have two new public hearings and a pre-application session. The first matter on the agenda is 55 Florence Road for a special permit. An application by George Theodoris on behalf of William Marion Silk, seeking special permit approval to construct a new single-family dwelling without meeting lot width pursuant to Section 5.1 of the Lowell zoning ordinance. The proposed project is located in the suburban single-family zoning district. We did receive a letter from the applicant, and they're requesting that the matter be withdrawn. Signed by Attorney George Elides and George Theodore. So what's the request of the board at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to allow the applicant to withdraw their application for a special permit without prejudice.
I'll second the motion.
Motion is made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes yes. That matter has been withdrawn. The next matter on the agenda is 41 Emerson Ave, definitive subdivision. An application by Emerson Ave Realty Trust seeking definitive subdivision approval for their proposal to create two lots, with each featuring a single-family dwelling with the required frontage located in Dracut. The parcels are located in the traditional single-family zoning district. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name's Phil Nyman. I'm the attorney for the applicant. To the right of me is my client, and Ed O'Neill III, trustee of the Emerson Avenue Realty Trust. And we're here for an application for you to allow two lots to be constructed on Emerson Avenue. We've submitted a great deal of documentation and have gotten a lot of cooperation from Planning and Development Office. And the issue here is there are two lots that are on Emerson Avenue. Part of the land is in Dracut, and but none of the land that is in Dracut is going to affect what we're doing here. You should have in front of you documentation from the town of Dracut Water Department that water will be coming from the town of Dracut. You should also have in front of you documentation that the Dracut Sewer Department will be handling and selling and delivering all of the sewer and the installation of sewer materials for the two lots. The real estate taxes on the property, which will be two single-family houses on two 8,000-plus square foot lots, will be assessed by the city of Lowell, and a small portion will be assessed by the town of Dracut. As you can see from the plan that I believe has been submitted to you, that a portion of the land is in Dracut. And that's the only complication. We have checked all of the subdivision plans. We're in a TSF district. As you know, it's a residential district, two 7,000 square foot, it's a 7,000 square foot minimum lot. One of our lots is 8,102 and the other one is 8,103 or 4, so we comply with that. When you look at all the dimensional requirements set forth in the regulations and the zoning ordinance of the city of Lowell, you'll see that we comply with all of that. We have submitted to you photographs showing the two houses that will be constructed. My client has given you a picture of both the front and a rear view of the house, because we just want everybody to be aware of the fact that it's a nice two-family house, and it's going to have two-car garage. As I say, since we've complied with everything, we've submitted a plan for you. We're really asking the board, if you have any questions. We think we've complied with everything that would be required for subdivision approval. And we're on a main street. The houses that are going to be constructed are going to be very similar to the houses that are on Emerson. Funny part is, some of the real estate on the street is in Dracut. Our parcel happens to be in Lowell. My client here, Mr. O'Neill, is a well-respected, long-time builder in Lowell, and he's very anxious to construct the houses in accordance with what the city of Lowell requires. It'll bring income from 2 single-family houses to the city of Lowell, and children that move in will be going to Lowell Public Schools. The family will be Lowell people. They just happen to have a slice of their land in front of them, as you can see from the plan, in the town of Dracut. I'm not aware of anything that I should be discussing with you that isn't already shown on the plans and on the documents that we've submitted. And I'm standing here with Mr. O'Neill, and if you have any questions, I'd be only too glad to answer them. Mr. O'Neill, would you like to stand up and show them your blue shirt and let them know that you're glad to be here, and just give them a little bit of background on what you're doing and why you want to do it?
Hi, good evening. We basically already went to Dracut. We subdivided the piece that is in Dracut into 2 pieces. Now we're combining it with the 2 pieces in Lowell to make 2 conforming lots in Lowell. So if you have any additional questions, I'd be more than willing to answer them. We do have a building plan. I guess you have copies of it here. We also have a bigger set if anybody would like to look at that. So if there are any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. This time I'll turn it over to everybody in the public would like to speak. Anybody here like to speak in favor of this project? Anybody here in favor? Anybody in opposition? In opposition? Hearing none, I'll turn it over to the board members.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just for the record, I will be abstaining on this particular petition. Thank you.
Okay. Any board members have any questions or comments? Mr. Lockhart, I'm sorry.
I think it's pretty, well defined here. I would make a motion for approval. for
Okay.
the,
Let me see what the other board members have before we get
Yeah,
that far.
okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have any questions.
Ms. Nesetsky, any questions, comment? Okay.
I have a question for staff. Why isn't this an A&R? Why does this require a definitive subdivision approval?
Because it's,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Why does this require definitive subdivision approval instead of being an A&R? Why?
Because of the fact that Dracut zoning is different than Lowell zoning,
And it doesn't meet Dracut's frontage?
and it did not meet Dracut's requirements for for single-family house. In fact, believe it or not, Dracut's single-family residence is over 12,000 square feet for this district, and I asked my client the same question.
Okay, all right. No, that's my only question.
Okay. Bob, any questions,
I
comments?
have no real questions about the proposal, but I have a question about
What's the address of these properties? Are they gonna be located in Dracut? I know they're being built in the house, the address will be.
It will be in Lowell, yes, sir, 41
It'll be 41.
and 43, or,
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Everything on the right side of that street, all the houses are actually in Lowell, and they all have Lowell addresses, even though they have similar, the little slices on the street,
okay,
all Lowell addresses.
all right. I have no other questions.
Enough?
Thank you.
Okay. Richard, now I'll turn back to you.
Well, I think it's pretty straightforward, and I will make a motion for approval of the definitive subdivision that is presented to us.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second,
Second by Mr. Malovich. All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Chair votes yes. Hearing any opposition? Hearing none, the motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. Good luck.
thank you all very
Well-
much, and I hope you have a nice, short evening.
Okay. Moving along, our next matter will be a rezoning petition for Shirley Ave. On the new business, we have a Shirley Ave rezoning petition. The Lowell Planning Board will have a public hearing. Will be heard to hear all interested persons relative to the proposed zoning amendment to extend the existing SMU, which is a suburban mixed-use zoning district, to include the area of the above address, 35 Shirley Ave. This area is presently zoned suburban single-family and is associated with the property at 595 Pawtucket Boulevard. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Mr. Chairman, for the record, members of the board, James Flood, 549 Rogers Street, representing the petitioner ET Properties LLC. Can I just deliver some documents?
Thank you, counsel.
With me tonight is Dr. Elias Nabut, who is the manager of the LLC and is presently a doctor practicing at the site. He purchased the property at 595 Pawtucket Boulevard from the Saab estate in 2012, and that parcel also included 15, 25, and 35 Shirley Avenue. All of those parcels were part of the original Saab Towers, most of us know it, development, which was located at 595 Pawtucket Boulevard. Dr. Nabut has completely renovated the building and is desirous of having it occupied as a medical office facility. He has moved his office from Tewksbury. He's also has entered into a lease with Leahy Clinic for two of the floors, and he has additional prospective doctors who'd like to rent the fourth floor. The problem is that in order to satisfy zoning, he needs 4 more parking spaces. The requirement for medical is one space for every 300 square feet, and the requirement for office building is 1 for every 400 square feet. So right now, he has 58. He needs 4 more in order to qualify the entire building for medical use. And as the plan I presented with the rezoning application shows we can, if we are successful, we can probably pick up an additional 8 to 10 spaces in that 35 Shirley Avenue site. I hope after I go through a little bit of the history and you've reviewed the documents I presented, that you could act affirmatively and recommend this request to the City Council. I've given you a bunch of documents The first one is the rezoning plan that I originally submitted to the city council pertaining to this property. The second exhibit would be the assessor's record as to the year the building was built. It was built in 1985. Third one is the zoning map in that area from 2001 to 2004. Fourth one is the zoning map after the 2004 zoning change. You've also given you an existing conditions plan that was prepared of that site back in 2005, and an aerial photograph of that site that was done in 2004. That came from the City of Lowell records. I've also given you a copy of the 2004 zoning requirements, and then various assessor certificates pertaining to all of the sites. So, as I stated, the building was originally constructed in 1985 as a 5-story building. The first floor is basically utility space and some parking for tenants, and the top 4 floors are to be used as office space. And like I said, the first exhibit I gave you, the assessors, shows it was built in 1985. At the time the building was constructed, it included all sites: the 595 Pawtucket Boulevard site, 35 Shirley, 25 Shirley, and 15 Shirley. And it was zoned at that time B2, limited business. The third exhibit I gave you shows the zoning map for the that area of the city for 2004, through 2004 as a B2 zone. And you can see that the B2 zone extended 500 feet back from Pawtucket Boulevard. In 2004, we all know that the city went through a citywide zoning change, and this area changed for zoning purposes. The land adjacent to the Pawtucket Boulevard in the area of Townsend, Shirley, and Melrose Avenue was now zoned SMU, which is suburban mixed use, from the B2, and the land northerly of the SMU zone was zoned SSF, suburban neighborhood single family, which is the most restrictive zone in the city of Lowell. And I've given you a copy of the zoning map for 2004. At the time of the 2004 change, the parcel at 35 Shirley Avenue that we're requesting the zone change for, in conjunction with the other Shirley Avenue parcels, was being used as a parking lot for the Saab Tower building. I've given you an existing conditions plan that was done in 2005 that shows the parking lot being used, and I've also given you an aerial photo from the City of Lowell records that shows that paved area in the back in 2004. So it was always there, it was always used. Always used as a parking lot. As to the 2004 zoning change, I'm not sure how they arrived at their zoning lines. If you look at the zoning map, the SMU zoning district is not based on a straight line, but it goes up and down throughout that area. I've been led to believe that those zoning lines were established based on the ownership of properties, and they went around the existing properties to reach that. In the case of 35 Shirley Avenue, I think they made a mistake. The area should have been included in the SMU zone. As you can see from the rezoning plan that I gave you, Exhibit A, and the city's assessor's record, which was Exhibit K that I gave you, the land at 35 Shirley Avenue consists of 6,000 square feet and only has 60 feet of frontage. The zoning requirements under the 2004 zoning change for an SSF property was 10,000 square feet and 75 feet of frontage. There is no way that this parcel could have met the zoning at the time of the zoning change. So I really feel there was a mistake. When they changed it, it became non-conforming. It couldn't be used for anything. It was tantamount to a taking of the property by the city of Lowell. As to its present status, it has no use. You can't build a house on it without variances, because you don't have the square footage, you don't have the frontage, and you can't park on it because it's an SF zone. So, I mean, it was always part of that original development. I don't know why it was changed. Dr. Nabut has come to the city, he spent a lot of money, he's bringing other doctors into the city, which would be good for the neighborhood, and I would ask that you act favorably on it based on there's no other use for the property. So we're here to answer any questions. Dr. Nabut's here also, who can speak on behalf.
Thank you, Counselor. Does anybody want to speak in favor of the zoning change?
Hi, my name is Elias Nabut. I'm part owner of the property. Basically, we just need a few more spaces. Sometimes it gets very crowded there. And to meet the zoning, the requirement for the parking spot. And since we moved there, the building was, before we moved, the building was very empty. And there was actually a lot of neighbors came to me and they told me how thankful they are. Now the building looks nice and lit, the parking lot lit. And there was a lot of drug deals was happening in the parking lot. And I think so far the neighbors were happy with the business we're doing there. And we're only looking to just expand a few more parking lots so it can meet future development. That's all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak in favor of the zoning change? In favor? In favor? In favor? Anyone like to speak in opposition?
I Deb Porgioni, Pawtucketville Citizen Council, and since I'm going to be speaking for the group, I don't know if you want to take a head count of people that are here that are against the change before my presentation, or?
How about you give us the presentation first, then
Okay,
I'll take the head count,
all right.
To see if you're all in agreement with your presentation.
All right, I usually don't come with props, but I wanted to be able to show you what we're expressing, and I think I might need this chair.
Sure. Whatever you need. Yeah. Upside down, but you can read it.
I didn't see yours. I didn't see yours.
It's the same plan you have, Mr. Flood. The same plan you have.
He's checking it out, he's gonna check it out.
Yeah. That's why it's the same one.
Your plan for
Yeah.
your marker.
Okay. What we're here for is to ask you to consider rejecting a change in zoning in that area. And I'd like to make 3 points. If you're looking at the map, tearing down a house and making it a lot is probably where the problem started. So it was a suburban single-family lot. And it's happened before in the city where someone will just tear down the house, and so now you have a vacant lot. Whereas if the foundation was still in there, there could have been a house there or a grandfathered lot to put a house there. I'm not sure of all the dates or exactly the timeline, but this has come up before where that reason it's not paved is because it had to go to conservation, and to put a asphalt blacktop there, there's a brook, there's a gully, there's a wetland area right in that corner, so it was very difficult to put a parking lot there. Also, when the last time a project was approved there, it was actually approved for residential, and the developer actually got the approvals. And they were not allowed to pave there because of the same reason, and also they needed a place for snow storage and dumpsters, so they didn't have a place for snow removal compensation. But the other reason that we're here is that it's just a reflection of the reason the zoning is in place is to protect the neighborhood. If you see where that black and red line is, it's a very defined line to protect the neighborhood that exists. So for every house that's there, then there's suburban single-family, then there's a line, and now you have suburban mixed-use. So it wasn't a mistake, it was clear that the neighborhood was protected from the SMU. So right now, those three houses, if you see where the dotted lines are, to the right is where his zoning is. It's suburban mixed use, and to the left is suburban single family. There are three houses there right now that you're going, if you approve this, you are now bringing in suburban mixed use into the neighborhood. And every house that abuts it will be devalued. They no longer are in a neighborhood. They're no longer part of a suburban single-family neighborhood. When they bought their house, they were next to a suburban single-family home, and by you changing it, they're gonna end up being next to a suburban mixed use. And suburban mixed use brings a whole set of criteria that doesn't exist there now. And so I went through the table of uses, or we all went through the table of uses to say, okay, well, what's the positive, what's the negative? And we just couldn't find the positive. We saw that the suburban single-family homeowners that live there now are no longer gonna be protected. They're no longer in their neighborhood, which was defined. They're also gonna be abutting suburban mixed use, which when they bought their property, they were abutting suburban single-family homes. And so if you turn around and try to sell your suburban single-family home next to something suburban mixed use, it devalues the property. The value is no longer there. And so if you go through the table of usages, if you change a suburban single-family right to a suburban mixed use, there'll be 52 changes, and none of them good for those homeowners or the neighborhood. It actually allows for suburban single-family, if you change it to suburban mixed use, that's a designation for hotels, dormitories, motels, and we broke up, there are 52 changes that'll happen. What's not allowed, if you approve it, there'll be 20 usages that by right they'll be able to do without ever coming to you again because you've changed the zoning. So all those three neighbors will always have to watch to see what's going there next to their property because there's 52 new changes, new uses to that property. So the fact that if you look at that line, it's not a mistake, it's by design. There's a line that defines there's a neighborhood that exists there, and we cohabitate with suburban mixed use. In fact, when we heard that Leahy Clinic was going in there, we posted it on our Facebook page as a positive. We never expected them to be coming in here and asking to creep into the neighborhood. There's a line, there's a neighborhood, and then we cohabitate with suburban mixed use. And by you changing it, the bigger the footprint, now you're into the neighborhood. And those three people's homes will be devalued. So if they're crunching numbers for 3 spots, I think that they maybe get a pencil and just probably maybe fine tune it a little bit better. This is the first we've heard about the fact that they even wanted to do that, although Fred Faust was, the last owner, Fred Faust, had come to us and said, you know, that they had an interest in having it rezoned, and I think we talked to him back then that there were a neighborhood existing in an area where there's a hospital and there's the boulevard, we have the boat. There's a lot of things that we coexist with, and I think we're good neighbors, and we welcome him to the neighborhood. We're just asking him to get his pencil, and if he needs 3 more spaces, to maybe try to find it elsewhere on the property. But that's what I'd like to say, and I don't know if you want to take a hand count.
Sure.
Yeah, how many people are opposed? If you could just raise your hand so you could take a count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I got a total of 7, okay.
8.
8,
Yeah. And
count you. I got Mr. I got Mr. LeMay. I saw
Okay.
his hand go up.
8, so there's
Okay,
1,
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay, I didn't see him. Okay, all right.
And then I believe there's another speaker too, thanks.
Okay, no problem. Okay. Thank you very much, okay?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is John Hamblett. I live at 495 Varnum Avenue, and I'm co-chair of the Pawtuckettville Citizens Council. I am opposed to the incursion of the SMU into the suburban single-family zoning district. I know this board is familiar with the Pawtuckettville master plan, and the master plan is just that. It's a plan of what we should do because of the development pressures in Pawtuckettville. And if I may, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to read one paragraph from the master plan that is relevant to this particular area. There are 2 locations where single-family residential streets extend from Varnum Avenue to the boulevard and incorporate a mix of commercial and residential uses located on the parcels that front Pawtucket Boulevard. This land use pattern occurs along Pawtucket Boulevard between Old Ferry and Bedford Avenue. While most of the length of these streets are zoned suburban single-family, the parcels fronting the boulevard are zoned SMU. The SMU district is intended for the development of large parcels. And then this is the part of this paragraph that I feel is important. While the SMU district is intended for the development of large parcels while offering a considerable buffer from neighborhood streets, the whole purpose of this plan was to protect suburban single-family homes from the incursion of large industrial and businesses that would be found in the SMU. Those are my comments in regards to the master plan. The previous owner, I believe, did come before the Conservation Commission in 2012. This is in the 100-year floodplain. If they decide to do anything, they have to go before conservation. There will be problems because on the other side of the Saab building, there is a swale, and that is a, not a retention, a detention basin. There is no detention basis on the other side of 35. And so they're going to run into stormwater problems if they decide to proceed. So with that, I didn't quite understand the relevance of a 60-foot lot. I have a site plan from the city engineer's office, and all of the lots on Shirley Avenue have 60-foot frontage. So there was nothing unusual about this lot. And the other statement I might question that was made is that it has always been a parking lot. It has not always been a parking lot. There was a house there. I don't know when it was torn down, but it was certainly post-1985. So, Mr. Chairman and the board, those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak in opposition?
Gentlemen, good evening. My name is Alan Saber. Excuse me. I live at 33 Dunbar Avenue in Lowell, where I've lived for more than half my life. I moved back there into my mother's property 7 or 8 years ago. I grew up in that neighborhood, and over the years, I don't have to tell you guys, a lot of stuff has changed. Some for the good, some for the bad, but we accept both. Change is often good. And I do want to applaud Dr. Nabut for his work. You know, that has always been, anyone that's in the Pawtuckettville area will tell you, that has been one of many eyesores, being empty, overrun with grass and everything else. He's done a marvelous job cleaning it up. However, I moved back into this neighborhood for the simple reason that it is a residential neighborhood. I hate to see them swallow up and move like crabgrass into the suburban part of the neighborhood. and especially just for a couple of parking spots. I never see anybody come back in. I know a lot of it's got to do with money, but I never see a building that's been, I don't know how vacant that was for how many years. I've never seen an owner say, I'm gonna come before you and I wanna change it to suburban. I wanna get rid of the multi-use and change it back to suburban, because I wanna do what the gentleman before us here tonight was gonna do. I wanna put a couple of houses up on it. I don't know how much more difficult that is than what we're doing here tonight, but again, I applaud you for your work and what you've done, and I wish you the best, but I just hate to see it creep into the neighborhood, even by just 60 or 70 feet. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak in opposition? Yes, gentlemen. Oh, you'll get to it. Go ahead. Yep.
Name's James McMorrow, 21 Leonard Circle, out in Pawtuckettville. Again, I agree with Mr. Saber. Your efforts to rehab that building, fantastic. It's been an eyesore for a real long time. There are 3 spaces needed for medical, I guess, there. If that lot was to be rezoned, there would be a total of 8, my understanding. I'm opposed to having it changed. My question is, what if the medical business moves out there? Are there other businesses that still need, what is it, 1 space per 300 feet? Are there other businesses that fall under that same criteria? Encroachment into the neighborhood. I echo with what John Hamblett, Deb, Al have all said. Mr. Samaras, Councilor Samaras, at subcommittee last month, summed it up in a blue-collar way, something that I really understood. If we start piecemealing the master plan for Pawtuckettville, there might be a precedent being set here. Hamill Brothers, I understand, retracted theirs because they felt the opposition from the neighborhood. I think which is a good move on their part. They listen to their neighbors. They always have been a good neighbor. They're a great business. Mr. Frechette, at that subcommittee meeting, helped me understand the master plan for Pawtuckettville a little bit more so that it's prompted me to get up here and speak in opposition of this parcel being rezoned tonight. Again, I'm opposed to it, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else like to speak in opposition? Do you want to speak, Mr. LeMay? I know you had your hand up a minute ago. Nobody else said? Anybody else want to speak in opposition? In opposition, opposition? Mr. Flood, do you want to be heard first before I turn it over to the board members? I know your client raised his hand, but I always, I'll go through council first.
I'm hearing all this talk about neighborhoods. Well, there's no question there's a neighborhood there, but prior to 2004, this was zone B2. It went back 500 feet, B2. In 2004, they came in and they changed it, and what they did is they cut out a lot that no way can it meet the zoning as required under the zoning. It's just going to sit there without any use. You can't build a house on it because you don't have 10,000 square feet. You don't have 75 feet of frontage. So in 2004, that was the parking lot. I don't think we're asking anything that wasn't there then. Now, we're only going back 440 feet, not 500 feet. So I don't know how they established that line, how they cut this single piece out, because it really was part of that development, and I think the pictures I showed you substantiate that. So all he's asking to, he's made an improvement. We know if it's a rezone, we have to go to the Conservation Commission. We've studied pervious concrete to pave it with. There's no other use for the property. As a matter of fact, I did get a call from an abutter today, Mr. Ward, who's next to it on Melrose Ave, and he said he'd much rather have a parking lot than a house, because of drainage issues in the area. So, I mean, I think that's what it was. We're not asking for anything that wasn't previously approved, and I'd ask that you affirmatively recommend it to the city council so we can proceed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Say something, Bob?
Thank you for coming in tonight, and really, I enjoyed, since I moved in, enjoyed being there. Very nice neighbors, and a lot of them became my patients. And a lot of them, they thanked me, they said, before you moved in, this parking lot was a lot of drug deals, actually, in that parking lot. And since we moved in, there is a camera, so they feel better about it. And basically, we're not, I think, as Mr. Flood said, you cannot do anything with this parking lot. I don't think you can build a house, even if they change the zoning, it's nothing probably could happen on it. It's only, if you don't do anything, I think plants and weeds will come up and will become more eyesore. So I think even if the zoning change will not be used other than a parking lot, and nobody can build much on it, it's very small for anybody to build anything on it. So that's all.
Thank you, sir. At this time, I'll turn it over to the board members. Mr. Fischett, I'll start with you if you don't mind.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I too am happy to see the property start to look nicer than it had. But the history of that building was somewhat controversial, and I was trying to find the newspaper article I had from Ann Welcome gave it to me when Foster Porter was on the Zoning Board of Appeals, and I do have the history of how controversial that particular building was even at that time. I do have some insight on how that line was arrived at. I was fortunate enough, I was extremely involved in the rezoning of the city, the Pawtucket Master Plan, the city's master plan. Mr. Boyle was actually in the planning department at the time. I think we had a lot of disagreements at the meetings over this strip of land. The Pawtucket Master Plan also calls for really looking at that. And I think there's a misconception too. There was a lot of discussion about preserving the business aspect. We have a wonderful facility in the old Wang building in Maycomb, and I went to an event there a couple weeks ago. And we were concerned that that you could have residential encroach on that property. It's in an SMU zone. So for anybody that's listening and anybody that is casting aspersions even on the Pawtucket Master Plan and how it's just residential, it was looked at in a comprehensive way, respecting the business development that's there. This particular building was really an aberration that was built in its time. That line, it makes a lot of sense when you look at how that line is divided. If you push that back, which we're being asked this evening, you now put that zone in front of a house on one side, behind the house on the other side, and you draw it right to the property line of the home behind it. And what is very disconcerting is, yes, it's a parking lot, and we go through this discussion all the time with requests for zoning change. Everybody needs to understand, we appreciate the petitioner bringing a concept of what they want to do, but at the end of the day, it's what can happen on that site. And I think it was Deb Forgione outlined on the table of uses the amount of changes. But I think one of the key features is if you look at the by right development of office, and there is no height requirement in this zone for non-residential use, no height requirement at all. And if you're building if you're abutting a residential zone, the buffer is 15 feet. Joe, if you don't mind just stretching that out, please. All right, to the wall over there, Joe? Yeah, okay. That's your buffer from a home, from an office building that has no height restriction. That's the buffer to the home that's behind it and the home to the side of it. That's the buffer. So to take that and create basically a peninsula, driving it out into the neighborhood, from my perspective, makes no sense. And that line was put there with that intention, with understanding that potential. So from that perspective, I think it, once again, somebody mentioned creep into the neighborhood. A lot of thought went into the lines that we have along there. There's unfinished business. That suburban mixed-use zone opens the door for a lot of potential bad development along that boulevard. The intent was to try to create a suburban waterfront district. We could never agree with anything. Planning department had their own vision. The residents who served on that committee had their own vision. The Pawtuckaville master plan, just for everybody to understand, because I'm really getting concerned that so many people that lived and breathed this are no longer here. And even people in the press are no longer here that followed it. And what's happening, it's people are rewriting how we got to where we are. And I'm very, very concerned with that. We're bound to repeat the errors of the past, in my mind, when we start to do this. So when we look at the Pawtuckaville master plan and what the intent was, and I served on the city's master plan, and we made sure that we recognized the unique, that whole strip of land in the city of Lowell. You've got the waterfront, you've got recreational use, you've got passive recreation, you've got the boat house, you've got residential property, you've got some business development, you've got some apartment developments, you've got a suburban single family, you have the largest employment center along Varnum Ave with Lowell General Hospital, Fairhaven Nursing Home, Duville Nursing Home. You've got one of the largest employment centers in the city of Lowell, in that triangle that starts to go along the boulevard. And then you have East Pawtuckaville. And I made sure we had representatives from East Pawtuckaville, because then you have a very traditional type of New England, Lowell residential neighborhood, mixed use along University Ave and Riverside Street and the Rosemont Terrace area. And you have the unique features that go along with that, all within that particular area, understanding that really we need to take another look at this and then create a master plan for this. And Centerville had its own plan. We had the students from MIT come in. That was an interesting presentation. So it was important to try to take all those particular issues and try to come up with a vision so that, and quite frankly, Counselor, and I've always felt this way, for a petitioner to come forward or a developer to come forward, they like to know what's expected. So that way there, it's a lot easier for them. So it isn't just meant to prevent things, but it's also meant to provide a guide. If you want to do something, I talked to one developer who had a project denied in Pawtuckaville, and he said, what should I do? I said, develop what the zoning allows you to do.
But they did.
They didn't.
They did. When they built it, they did.
No, I'm not talking about this particular project. I'm talking about another project in Pawtuckaville.
Yep.
What I'm saying is that we try to set the expectation so it works both ways. So in this particular case, it's set. It's set what the zoning is. The residents that abut that, they know what the expectation is. That is zone suburban single family. And I think by protruding into that neighborhood, and you're creating a peninsula with a residential home right across the street, residential home to the rear, and a residential home to the rear, the backyard of another residential home. The potential is there for that to be developed with a 15-foot buffer for those homes. So from that perspective, I just don't think it's appropriate in this particular case.
Well, my point, Mr. Frechette, is when it was built, it conformed to zoning. It was a B2 zone. That area was used for parking. They came in 2004 and changed it. I don't know where they found that line. I was led to believe they established the lines along boundary lines of people's property, but they cut through this. So they left 6,000 square feet with 60 feet of frontage. What was the vision for that lot at the time of the zoning?
What was recognized, Counselor, is that there wasn't adequate protection for the neighborhood.
But what they did is they took property from a person without consideration because they can't use it for anything now. And I don't think that was the intention on that piece of property, because that property cannot be used for single-family home. It doesn't have 10,000
It
square
could
feet.
be used for a buffer from a major development that's there.
Yeah, but the development was already there. That's my point. And it was always a parking lot, and that's all we're asking for now. We have to go to the Conservation Commission. We have to get their approval before we can do it. But he's made an investment. He's moved from Tewksbury to Lowell. He wants to bring doctors in. There are hospitals, there are nursing homes. There's doctors for the neighborhood, and we're just asking for that opportunity.
We're looking at three
There
parking.
always can be a buffer zone between the parking lot. I mean, we have to go in front of the Conservation Commission for approval, and they could put some recommendations in there. But that's what it was used for before. I just I can't understand why people would object to what was there before. You know, I hear neighborhoods, well, it was a business before, before they established that zone line, so that's my
And I
point.
understand-
I mean, I know you were involved in it,
No,
involved, but I think what they did is they cut out this piece, and there's no use for that piece. He's paying taxes on it, he'd like to use it, he can't build a house on it, he can't get a variance because he can't give use variances, so, we just like to use it for parking lot.
Basically, what happens if this does not get approved, sorry, I have a group of physicians interested in taking the whole floor. So if I don't have those extra spaces, I cannot develop the floor. So the whole use of the fourth floor will go away. Basically, I cannot do anything with the fourth floor.
And I'm sorry, my understanding was you needed 3 parking spaces, and then you said you were going to benefit by having more. Is that?
Well, we could put, we could put 8 in there, the plan shows 8, but I'm not sure that anyone would approve 8, but the minimum we need is 3, and that's, no, we need,
And,
4.
and you don't think, Counsel, you can get any kind of a variance for the 3
can't.
parking spaces?
You can't, because it's single-family zone.
No, not variance for use in there, that you wouldn't get approval to use that 4th
Oh,
floor?
I
because of that?
don't know. I don't know whether the neighborhood would oppose it if we don't have those parking spaces. All he wants to do is improve the building, bring doctors in there.
And I can appreciate that. We're talking 3 parking spaces, and for the
Parking.
difference of 3 parking spaces, you're talking about creating a protrusion right in, with a home. How do you think that home would feel right directly across from there if, in the future, that is used for development?
What can they can't develop anything there. It's wet, it's wetlands. They need this, they need that land for
At one
parking.
time, you wouldn't be able to put any kind of a surface on that. Now they have pervious pavement that you
We
can
need
put in
4
there.
parking spaces is what we need. We have 58, we need 62. We need 4.
I honestly believe, I think you can have another solution to get 4 parking
Well, we
spots.
we could go to the Board of Appeals and ask for a variance, sure. But there's no guarantee of that. My feeling is, since it was parking lot, that's all we're asking for now. And I don't know how they established that line when they did it. I mean, if they were doing a buffer, why didn't they do buffers all the way around? Why is just this piece? I think it was a mistake.
Counsel, that's why I told you this was an aberration. Point to me another, prior to the grand view, and then that can be another 2-hour discussion, but prior to the grand view, there's no other building along there.
If you
that
look at the
even matches that.
AAA building, there's
Right.
no buffer zone here that they can't build on. It's just here. This is the only spot. There's apartments here, you know?
Well, but that's a square, that squares off. See, the thing is, Counsel, that wraps right around the residential homes.
What does?
The piece that you're looking to rezone.
But it was, because you rezoned it, the city rezoned it.
Right.
And it took all use away from it. And I don't know why they just did it to this piece and not the other pieces. Because this is, if you're talking a buffer zone, there should have been one up at the AAA building too. So I don't think I think it was a
Well, the
mistake.
AAA building, that property does not wrap around any residential homes.
It abuts it.
It abuts it, but it doesn't wrap around.
They could extend.
Counsel, what happens is you have a situation where now, right across the street, something can go on that property that right now cannot, that would be facing that residential home. That's where I'm coming
Yeah,
from on this. And I understand what
Well,
you...
I know you were involved in it, but I think you've got to consider what that property can be used for. It can't be used for anything now. And I don't think that was the intent of the rezoning when they did it. And he wants to improve it, he'll work with the neighbors to make sure they're all satisfied. So I'm still asking if we could get a recommendation.
I can respect that, Counselor. The couple, again, talking about landscaping, that area can be landscaped and can be made to look quite attractive and add something to the development, to be honest with you, and for snow storage going to conservation. So there is some use that can be added to that property that would add value to that particular property. So I think that's something that,
Absolutely, they could put
Yeah.
nice landscaping in there with 4 parking spaces. There's plenty of snow storage behind the other parking, so that's not the problem. They could beautify it. I mean, he said he's put new lights in, he's lit up the area.
yeah,
There's
no,
no more
absolutely, I
drive-
agree with that.
I mean,
And
He's made an investment in the city, and
And counsel that, and I'm glad to see that, because it's a difficult building to deal with. And
It was.
we looked at somebody trying to put residential apartments in there, and the floor area per dwelling unit didn't even make any sense, because you could only get 4 units in there if you followed the formula. And that particular developer was going for a variance for that, and you know, the neighbors met out there extensively, and that was just prior to the flood, and they decided to walk away from it at that point. That certainly changed their mind on what they wanted to do with that particular property. So it's a challenging site.
Yeah.
It's good to see a reuse of the site. I just think that this really does not inhibit the reuse of the site, and it does provide some protection to the neighborhood as it sits right now. That's how I view this particular site.
I won't be able to do anything with the 4th floor, and I have a group of physicians who's interested in actually moving to the 4th floor. If I cannot develop it into medical, meet the requirement, I think the whole plan is gonna go away.
For 4 parking spaces, I suspect, I can't speak for the zoning board of appeals, but I honestly think for 4 parking spaces,
Yeah, this is gonna probably delay. I have somebody who's interested, specialist actually, who's gonna come in, and they're gonna be very good to have specialists in the
If-
area. So if this is gonna delay it for 6 months, probably the whole plan will go. I don't think they're gonna wait.
No, I know what you're saying, but if we would have some support in front of the Board of Appeals, it probably would be the way to go.
I would encourage
But I'd
you
have
to,
to
I would
tell-
encourage you to talk to the,
But she's not even smiling.
Can you come to the mic, please, so everybody else can hear us? Thank you.
What I'm confused with, I don't know what is preventing him from not putting 3 parking spaces there. If it was a home, you could have a driveway. I don't know what's preventing him from having 3 parking spaces.
you can't use a residential zoned site for commercial parking use. So.
Okay, so how about this, though? When you look at that plan, and I don't do this for a living, but there's no way you can't get 3 more spaces on that site. I walked over there. You could even piggyback the employees. Under the building, they piggyback. So if you look under the building, right. Well, it's more, I just, again, been here long enough to know that a good engineer, someone with a good pencil, will be able to get him his 3 parking spaces. I think the willingness to compromise is probably one of the best assets of a good neighbor. He hears what we're saying about the neighborhood. There's a reason the line is there. It's clear why the line is there. They're saying, like, we don't understand why it's there. In 2004, we're explaining it's there for protection. And so against what's happening right now. So when you bought the property, surely you must have known what you were planning to do and what was required, so that if you look at that land, to get just 3 more parking spaces, to have a lucrative 4th floor and make a neighborhood happy, I think the compromise would be to everyone's benefit, for them to ask to go back to their engineer with their pencil and find 3 more spaces. If you think about that, when everyone leaves here tonight, there wouldn't be anybody that would be unhappy. So that's just what I'm asking them, to revisit that site and give us the buffer to stay the neighborhood. And if you could just hear what we're saying, that would be terrific. I'd appreciate it, and thank you.
Counsel, that's, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead,
Joe
let him
Pisnola
address
has-
the 3 parking spots, because I'm sure Mr. Flood has already looked at that.
Joe Pisnow's worked that plan. He can't find any more, and he's a good engineer, any more parking spaces on that site. I don't know whether, if we came up with a plan to keep a buffer in just a portion of that, extend it just a short distance, change that zone line, whether that would satisfy them as long as the buffer to the house, so we could get those 4 spaces. It really would only be, I think, a couple of those spaces are right on the line, so there would be plenty of buffer if we just move the rezoning line a little, if we split it in half, say. And that would give you a buffer. You understand what I'm saying?
Really sorry, but I think the presentation we make is that the line is to protect the neighborhood.
You got 60 feet, he's talking 15 feet would be the setback.
Surely there must be a way to look at that plan.
There's no more,
Three more spaces.
there isn't, there isn't.
When he bought the land, didn't he know that?
He knew it when he came in to do his renovations, he found out about.
Okay, but he only knew it after the fact?
But I know, the point is that you're saying they established a line there to give that neighbor a buffer. But what in turn they did is they took property away from another owner without any consideration. So, I mean, I don't know if we came up with something like that, whether that would be acceptable. If we agreed to split the line, and only go 30 feet out, whether that would be acceptable to you. Because that way we could get those spaces in there. And that would be a compromise, I think.
All right, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have at the moment.
Okay. Any of the board members, anybody else want to comments, concerns? Okay, Mr. Lockhart, I'll go to you.
I appreciate the opposition here tonight, and I'm sensitive to the neighborhood's needs and your argument. But at the same time, we as a board have to be sensitive to the development of a business. This gentleman essentially is within the healthcare field. So having said that, I know you've talked about 3 or 4 spaces. You cannot get those into the existing, and you've tried to do that? Have you worked with DPD at all on looking at an alternative there?
No,
So basically, we
You know, I
have,
really, looking at that, I've done a lot of these
right,
in my
but-
career.
no, there is one more floor left in the building, and there is a plan for specialists to come in, which also will be useful for the whole Lowell area. So instead of traveling somewhere else to see the specialist, they're gonna come here to basically provide services. And we cannot start any development on that floor as a medical unless we have those extra parking spots. If you don't have those, you cannot develop and I cannot develop half of the floor because I cannot accommodate those physicians unless I have the whole floor. So basically, that's what's happening.
If you went 30 feet up,
So my other suggestion, I mean, can you just extend that zoning line to the point where you can gain your 4 spaces and drop it down? So that there's a significant amount of buffer?
if we amended the request to split it to 30-30, I think we could get them in.
Why can't you just go 4 more parking spaces?
Well, I think you need 30 to do it, because they're 10 each, and then you need some space at the end, so.
So that would be unacceptable.
You need 4, we need 4 spaces, is what we need. But I think we'd be willing to consider that, if that would be the wish of this board.
All I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Mr. Snetsky, any questions, comments?
Yes. Generally, I've been, from my time on the board, I've been sensitive to these types of issues, you know, particularly, we've had several with the Pawtucketville area. But looking at this particular one, considering it was in conformance when the original development was built and the circumstances of the 2004 change, and the fact that a development exists on the site, and the likelihood of that development being torn down and be trying to build something else there is slim, if not nil. I could see supporting, you know, this. If the applicant would be willing to split that at 30 feet, all the better. I think it would, you know, make it even a little more palatable, but I do think that some relief is appropriate in this particular case.
Thank you. Mr. Boyle?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I joined this board, I sought appointment to this board, I didn't realize I would be doing penance for my sins. I drew that lot line. And whether it was an error is certainly up for debate, but I can tell you it was intentional. It was not an oversight. It was done thoughtfully, consistently with the principles that guided our creation of the new zoning map. And in particular for this area. We don't like to draw zoning boundaries down the middle of streets on our zoning map, and that is because it is bad practice to have dramatically distinct uses across the street from each other. You don't want to have a supermarket across the street from single-family homes. We instead draw our lot lines, down the backs of blocks, everybody's rear lot line. So you've got one street with, say, single-family homes on both sides, and then their backyards abut up to a street of two-family homes on both sides, as opposed to having single-family on one side of the street, two-family on the other, commercial on one side of the street, residential on the other. This lot, that lot in question was excluded from the suburban mixed-use zone and included in the suburban single-family home zone for the purpose of not having suburban mixed-use type development legally to be built directly across the street from a single-family residential home in an established neighborhood. What use was envisioned when we drew this lot line? The continued use of this amount of land area in conjunction with all of the abutting land area and common ownership for providing the land area of the sob tower. That was the envisioned use, that it would continue to be in combined use with what's zoned suburban mixed use out by the boulevard. What was also envisioned, deliberately envisioned, as a policy decision that was made, was that having this parcel, this portion of the overall sob tower land put into suburban single-family use would have the effect of limiting the capacity of the property to be developed as much as it otherwise could and as close to the single-family homes as it otherwise could. That was the point. That was what I did. If that was a mistake, then it was a mistake, but that was the intention. That was the city's public policy. Enough with history, let's get to some city planning. The substantive question here appears to be about parking, about the provision of parking. I would rather see 3 cars or 8 cars of the clients and of the patients potentially parking on street out closer to the boulevard than to see this portion of land across the street from someone's single-family house rezoned so that it could legally be built, what can be built in a suburban mixed-use zone. I would strongly, individually, I would strongly support doing this by variance. And the reason it's better to do this by variance is that variances can have conditions put on them. They could grant him a 3 parking space variance, and in exchange, there could be something done to make sure that this is landscaped as a beautiful buffer, and make sure that nothing bad is done on it. Whereas a zoning map amendment is thumbs up or thumbs down. And if we give them the thumbs up, we can't lawfully give them the thumbs up to build 4 parking spaces and build the rest according to this very nice landscaping plan. It's illegal for us to do that. It's called contract zoning. You know that. You can't do contract zoning. So, yeah, I want to make the development possible. I want to help him out with his parking problem. I think it would be better to do that in a way that is more protective of the neighborhood. And I hope the neighbor, and I think the neighborhood would certainly be better off and have it in their interest to see that this need, this legitimate and important need that I think we should take into account of this applicant is met, and is met in a manner that allows him to do his project without having to extend up into your neighborhood. And that might mean supporting a zoning application, a variance application before the ZBA. I personally would be supportive of such an application. Splitting the baby solution, creating 30-foot wide, 30, yeah, doing a 30 and 30, that strikes me as a second best solution, but yeah, that could work too. I wouldn't be against that, but I would be against this solution. I would be against rezoning the land across the street from that person's house on the side street to suburban mixed use.
We have no problem with the 30-foot split. I think that makes sense. Because it still gives you, if you're concerned about a buffer zone, you still have it towards the house. But it also, maybe at that time, Joe, that the parking requirements for medical were different. But now we need those spaces we can't get a building permit for medical use without those spaces.
Or a variance.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's why we need it. So I mean, I'd be willing to do that, and if you would vote favorably on that, I'd have a new plan prepared for the city council, splitting it.
This gets into an administrative question. Can we give a recommendation on a theoretical zoning map amendment?
Well, I think, I think the board definitely has to vote as to what's in front of them. And you can put language in a recommendation to the city council.
Okay.
I mean, that's up to the board.
Yeah. Actually, to go to the AAA.
Come to the microphone, please, sir, because the rest of us can't hear you.
Yeah, I did try to go to the AAA to see if I can rent some space from them. And unfortunately, they said there is no space for rent. So I tried to avoid that. I don't want to be invasive or anything. I tried to find those parking spots somewhere else, which was, they wouldn't give it to me. And if people want to park on the street, this is not going to change the zoning. So I'm still unable to develop the site, even if people decide to park on the street.
I'm assuming.
You know what I mean?
That's
what's.
Yeah, you're right. When I say that, I'm assuming that, I'm assuming if there were a zoning variance that that knocks off the 3 or 4 or whatever it is, that, oh no, what if there are, an insufficiency of 3 spaces, and there's 3 cars that don't get to park in the parking lot? Well, they park on the street, and everybody's fine.
Probably would be better to have those for the neighborhood, to have those cars parking inside the lot instead of parking on the street. I think it's.
You don't think we could amend our petition to split it? We're asking for the zone to be extended, but only 30 feet into the 35, surely.
Well, it's my understanding that what you have in front of you is what you have to vote on.
I think so too on that, council, just to follow up. I think since it's been advertised, it was sent to the city council. They sent it to us as a result of how the zoning changed to be changed. Obviously, if it was a site plan or a special permit that we had the sole jurisdiction of, I think then you could amend that in front of us. But I think by the way it was advertised, the way they took the reading at the council, and I know we have some former councilors here, which would tell you that, they're the ones who sent it to us to either vote for or against this zoning change. So I don't think, legally, I don't know if we could say we're cutting it in half. Some people might have different perspectives and have different reasonings to vote for or against if the zone was smaller. But I don't think have the authority to do it since the legal reading was done by the council and referred to us for the whole zone. I mean, I know you've had a lot of experience on the zoning here, and Mr. Lemay has his hand up, and I'll address him shortly. But so I think when they send it to us as that whole parcel,
Well, that was the request I made.
yeah.
That would be the request
I
I
mean, you know,
made.
they sent it to us, we have, and then, you know, from ours, we have the letter that was sent to us by the city clerk, by everybody else, and then the ordinance that was proposed, which is signed by the law department, so for us just to change at the planning board level,
Yeah.
I mean, I think the council would have the authority to do that, but I don't think the
Why,
planning board would.
well, if you voted against the 60-foot change, but would recommend extending it 30 feet, and then if it went to the council that way, and then if the council sent it to the zoning subcommittee, or, I don't know how it would work to amend it in front of the council, I don't know.
Yeah. I'll address Mr. Lemay. Curtis, you mind coming to the microphone? I think you had your hand up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Curtis LeMay, 40 Robert Street. I've been a longtime member of the PCC. I think what we have before us is, on behalf of the PCC, is the fear of the unknown. Once again, I might add. We're always using the Pawtuckaville Master Plan whenever something comes up. And the subcommittee on neighborhoods just had their subcommittee meeting at the Wayne School off-site. And apparently, there are many people that are not aware of the master plan. And I know a generation has passed, but if you look at what some of the things have happened up there, the Grandview, I mean, I think there was 12 to 18 variances just for that property alone. And I applaud the doctor's efforts. And I say the unknown, the fear of the unknown for these people versus the owner and the council here as far as either coming to this board here or the Board of Appeals. I'm not a lawyer, but I thought maybe a Board of Appeals would be more appetizing to everybody, because I think the PCC could live with that. They're fearful, like I said, with that zoning change as far as what you could do there. And as Mr. Fischett said, the 15-foot buffer, that is what we're concerned with. I think they'd want to work with them and have a happy medium here, but I don't know which way to go about it. I think you are obligated to vote what's before you, unless they wanted to go another route. I don't know, but I think that's what the PCC is
And
coming
by
at.
following that up, if I may, because what had been suggested before, if they go for variance, then obviously the only thing they could do is whether that variance was allowed or not. And because as we all know is, you know, this is a nice building up here now that it stands. And what happens a lot of time is they change ownership. That may come down, may not time, and then you go all the way back there and something else may be built, like Mr. Fischett said earlier. But the variance, which was mentioned as an alternative, if you give just that variance, you don't have, as you're saying, the unknown what may be built there later, because it's restricted to that land use as the variance, and it's only for the allowed parking. And everybody else in the neighborhood, no, they can only put cars there, they can't build on it.
And the PCC represents the neighborhood, and that's why they're here.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
the neighborhood endorses their application on their behalf, and
Right.
that's why we're here.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lemay. I'm going to go over to
I think I would be willing to go the Board of Appeals route if I would have support from the PCC. I would do that. And then if, for some reason, it didn't happen, we could always come in with a new rezoning petition with the 30 feet.
Yeah.
That sounds ideal.
Let me just finish hearing from Mr. Let me speak. Let me hear more from the board members, okay? Mr.
You want to say something?
I guess not.
That's the solution. And
Okay.
knowing the zoning board, they're gonna get it, so. So, know the zoning board, you'll be able to get those parking spaces.
Well, with your support.
Well, I think in a case like this, what you're saying is you just really need 3 to 4 more parking spaces on your property. And so I know that we've been to zoning before where they've actually, I think the last time they approved a project, they gave 12 spaces to somebody. So 3 spaces, and I will go with you that night
We could do that,
with my props.
and then
I'll go with you.
if there's a problem, then we could always come back with another rezoning. Okay.
So Let me get back to the board members. Mr. Malovich, I know it's your turn.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Bob.
As I had said at the Hamel request for rezoning, I applauded their proposal as I do this proposal here and the work that's been put into this building. But I view as a board member, it's my responsibility, as is the other board members, to recommend to the city council the land use change, not what's being proposed on the site, but the land use change. And I cannot see this being changed. It's inconsistent with my position in the past, and I think the board's position in the past in encroachment into neighborhoods. So I think relief is available, and I think all the discussions that were made, I think it's possible to get this thing to happen without recommending any encroachment into the neighborhood.
Mr. Flood, just come back up to the mic, please. Thank you.
I don't mind at this point withdraw this request and then go forward with the Board of Appeals.
See where you go.
I don't think you can.
Because it's a city council request.
Yeah, I
But
think
then
that
I'll-
the
But
board,
I mean,
Technically, what we're here for tonight is the
Yeah.
city council's request
Yeah.
for us to hold a public hearing, not your request.
But it's
Yeah,
my
the
request for the
board's-
rezoning,
Yeah.
so.
the
So, I
board
mean,
still has to
what would happen technically, legally, if he requested be withdrawn here,
That doesn't-
and then, is it scheduled for the city council?
Next Tuesday, yeah.
Then he could send a letter in requesting it be withdrawn from the city
And
council.
then we'll go the other route.
And I'm sure a lot of the councilors would rather say,
I'm assuming it was the council's option. That's the route that they wanted to go with the council. That's why the council.
yeah. Well, by law, the council has no choice on a zoning change. It has to come to the planning board's recommendation only.
Well, why don't we do
They
that?
they can't pass a zoning change whether we vote for or against, because the operation of law is, it has to come here for a recommendation only. But if he withdraws it here, then the city council can do whatever their pleasure is, allow the withdrawal, deny the zone change, approve the zone change, or send it back to us. That's basically their options, correct?
Right.
Right. So, if he wants to withdraw it,
Then there's nothing before the council.
yeah, then the council would,
I think that's probably the route to go with the support. I have the support now, and we,
I mean,
it'll probably be all right. 'Cause
I think the
there'll be
variance takes
no
the
change.
unknown fear away from the neighborhood, saying, this is all we're gonna get is these couple of parking spaces, especially where you might get support of the neighbor in the back there, Mr. Ward, who you talked to earlier, who said he'd rather have it
Yeah,
that
he'd
way,
rather
too.
have a parking than, but this way, there's nothing gonna happen with that
No,
site.
and then you get the protection-
It's gonna be what exists, so.
And then if you have to go, and then you have, to do anything on there, if you have the wetlands concern, what's gonna be the conditions imposed on that.
Yeah, we won't
So then
have
you'd
that problem.
So you'd have to go would you have to go to both boards, you think, ZBA as well as conservation, to put the parking space?
No, if we just go for the variance, it's already existing, so we don't
Right.
have to go.
Yeah, so you just have the variance.
Just go to
Okay.
for the variance.
So,
That probably makes sense.
okay, does any of the board members want to make a motion to allow the applicant to withdraw the zoning request at this time?
I'll make a motion to allow the applicant to withdraw
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Lockhart. Do we have a second on the matter?
Second that, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Mr. Fischett. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Any opposition?
Thank you.
Hearing none, the matter has been withdrawn. Thank you. Good seeing you, John. plans you want, Counselor, while we're just waiting for the board to come back? You can set up any plans, whether you want to put them in here, outside there, whatever's more convenient.
See him if we leave him here?
Yeah, if you want to put one in the corner here, that way any of the people in the audience can see it as well. Some people prefer over here or there, so everybody can get a picture of it, okay? Yeah. So you can set them up whatever you feel appropriate if you want to do one of them. Yeah, what we'll do is, see that microphone in the corner? What you have to do is hit the button. Yeah, just hit it when the green light comes on, you can use that microphone. Sometimes they give us a portable one as well. Councilor Martin knows what a green button is. He knows what a silent button is too. Okay, moving along with the agenda, we have a site plan for 1 Merrimack Plaza. The Lowell Planning Board will hold a public hearing regarding an application by Verizon Development, Inc. for approval of a site plan review under Section 11.4 application. A zoning variant and a special permit will be required by the Zoning Board of Appeals, and any other relief that is required for 205,000 square foot student housing building to be located at the above address. In addition to new building, the proposal includes the demolition of an existing commercial structure and the construction of loading areas, pedestrian facilities, landscaping, and associated utilities. The site is located in the downtown mixed-use zoning district. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is William Martin, attorney with offices at 21 George Street in Lowell. I represent the applicant Vision Development. Vision is a nationwide leader in the development of student-purposed housing. With me this evening is the president of Vision Development, Rick Schaefer, who's to my right, and you'll hear from him in a minute. Members of the development team include the architect, Dan Benoit, Benoit Reardon Architects, and Evan Watson of Prime Engineering. They're standing next to their respective plans. Also with me this evening is Dave Wallace, president of the Lowell 5 Cent Savings Bank. We have this property under agreement to purchase from the Lowell 5. So, as I said, Vision has done this type of development in other places. Wake Forest University, some state schools in Pennsylvania, and most recently here in Worcester, Mass, a project that is just ready to open this month. This proposal, we think, is consistent with the City of Lowell master plan. The master plan calls for the development of private student housing, housing that would be owned in the private sector, that would be tax-paying property, and then leased out to students who attend the universities here. Our proposal will need a site plan approval here, including the component of the zoning ordinance that requires site plan approval of student housing. We need other approvals as well. We do have a special permit for the use that's required from the Board of Appeals. We plan to be there next Monday. There is the Merrimack Canal, runs right through the middle of our project. So we'll need the Conservation Commission approval, and because we're in the downtown historic district, we will need approval from the Historic Board. We have met informally with the Historic Board several times. They've been very receptive to the design. And I'll let the architects and engineers talk specifically about what we're doing. So we have the department's feedback. Judy was very helpful with that and coordinating that. We have the engineers working on responses to all the various comments. We don't view anything that we've seen from the departments as things that are going to be showstoppers for our project, and we plan to have all of those issues addressed. And we're eager to have your feedback tonight from members of the board and see what questions you have that we may be able to answer. Before we get into the engineers, I think it'd be important to hear from Rick Schaefer. He can tell you a little bit about his company, what he's done in the past, and we're excited that this project is proposed for Lowell. We think it could be a real asset to the community, and Rick is excited about doing work here. So if we could just indulge for a few minutes and hear from Rick Schaefer. Rick.
Good evening. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to come before you folks tonight. My name is Rick Schaefer. I live my life by a very simple code. God first, family second, my profession third. That being said, I just want to be grateful to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, to be before you here. All things come from him, and I'm very grateful and blessed to have him in my life. Family, I've raised 5 children, currently have 6 grandchildren, ranging from 41 years of age to 33. My children, grandchildren from 12 down to 4 months. My business, I round down now to 40 years. I've been doing this quite a while. The last 10 years of our business, we have focused on purpose-built student housing, which there is not a lot of that in Massachusetts. So I think that we're very fortunate to kind of be here before the curve gets here. Purpose-built student housing grew out of Austin, Texas. So you have in the southwest, southeast, you have a lot of purpose-built student housing. You have a lot of ground. You can spread the developments out, lends itself to low cost for ground, construction cost, a little bit more reasonable than you might find in the north. I'm actually from Philadelphia, so we arrived here about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and we're going through zoning in Dartmouth, Massachusetts, actually for a facility. It's a 94-acre site. It was an existing gravel pit. Going through the process in a town hall form of government, which I had never experienced. We got down the road and decided to withdraw our application without prejudice there because we had some abutters that weren't real happy with us. That being said, it happened that the solicitor from Worcester was in the audience that night and said, "You need to go to Worcester, Mass. We need you there." Didn't know where Worcester was. So we investigated it, and we found that there was 10 very good schools there, no purpose-built student housing in the city. Acquired a 100-year-old mill, and we're just completing a 10-month restoration, historic restoration of the Osgood Bradley building there. Our first young adults are moving in June, so it's gone real well. It's a 180,000 square foot mill. We were able to complete the construction in 10 months. We're proud of that. That being said, I was at Mass Preservation Awards, and Steve Stoll happened to be there, and he said, "You need to come to Lowell, you know. We have a lot of old mills, and, you know, we have a campus that's growing." And so we came up, and we're very fortunate that the Lowell 5 Bank building was vacant. I think it lends itself really well, where we have the boot mill on one side of us, very beautiful building, and we have a nice redevelopment project down by the river below us, and we have a parking garage and a high school. So I think for the use, it kind of sits really nicely because we're not necessarily affecting residential abutting neighbors. So I think that it's a really nice lot for this use. So that being said, I'm very, very blessed, and I had met Rich Rayum of Prime Engineering when I was in Dartmouth, and Rich agreed to come over and help us out. And he does the geotech, he does the environmental. The staff of people that he has are highly professional, and Rich is quite adequate at what he does. And Dan actually came with the Osgood Bradley building. When I purchased the building, Dan Benoit was there. Paul Morano, who's the head of economic development for the city of Worcester, along with Mike Traynor there. Scott Butcher, who is our tax consultant, happened to be there, and Alex Rex, who is our historic consultant, came with the building, so it was really nice, you know. And Dan and I have established quite a relationship together, and Dan is one of Worcester's best resources, whether they realize it or not. He's navigated the city, an extremely talented man, worked in the city planning department for a while. So it works really well because when we come into municipalities like this, you know, Dan thinks like a planner. So when we originally designed our building, before we met with Steve, Dan had already addressed a lot of the concerns that maybe that's a bad thing to say, a normal architect, but what an architect without a city planning background may have overlooked. We're here tonight. We have a 205,000 square foot facility, be 438 beds. A little bit different than what we have built in our other projects, in that we built primarily prior to this, with the exception of one state school called Shippensburg State in Pennsylvania, to private schools. And we have what we call a bed bath parity, which means every bedroom has its own bathroom, and there are suites within the suites. Checking the demographic and meeting with the school a couple times, director of development for our company, Frank Warren, had met with the school early on when we were first looking at the project. And we have a little bit more of a diverse mix, if you would. 24% of our units here are shared units, which we normally wouldn't do. And then we have a combination of 2 bedroom, 1 bath units and 4 bedroom, 2 bath units. So we have a lot more of a unit mix than we would normally have in this facility. And I think what it does, it lends itself to being more affordable for the majority of students at the school. So I'm at this point ready to turn it over to my design professionals. If there's any questions for me personally, I'll be more than happy to answer them if I can.
Thank you, sir. Who's up? We just have a mic turned on and just state you know, your name for the record, if you would. Thank you.
Hi, Dan Benoit, Benoit Design Group, Worcester, Mass. How do I do this? I'll hold it. Yeah. So what Rick was referring to before with the design of the building, the building sits at the end of the canal corridor, and I have a photo in my briefcase that shows the old mill building with the clock tower basically at the end of the canal. So when I first looked at the site, I thought of locating a study area, lobby and study area that looks out over, thank you, Rick, this photo here of the old mill with the clock tower. So this tower here is a reference to the original clock tower. This is just, you know, the view corridor that exists there at the end of the canal, a nice place for students to study, relax, so forth. So it's a tight fit, but we utilized the site as best we could with this U-shaped design. We have on the first floor
We have the drop-off area here at the end of the right-of-way. And then all this area here by the lobby and ground floor are amenities. These are a weight room, lounge area, computer study labs, gaming rooms, that type of thing for the students. So the public areas are down here. The remainder of it is residential units on the first floor, and then likewise 2 through 5, it's a 5-story building, would be all residential units. These are just, this is from the, actually from the building in Worcester. This is a rendering of the lounge area in Worcester. So you can see that, you know, it's a high level of detail, and all the units are fully furnished. They have Wi-Fi, so they're all move-in condition, basically. This is a living area, living kitchen area. It's the weight room. So similar finishes and amenities here in Lowell. With that, I guess we'll address some of the site issues.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Evan Watson from Prime Engineering. Our office is in Lakeville. Now, in the past, we submitted a plan set dated April 15th. It's gone out. We worked with Judith. We had a roundtable meeting with some members of the staff and other departments in the city. And since then, they've actually submitted some letters for us to consider. And what we've done is we've drafted this set of plans here, dated today. Hasn't been submitted yet, but this plan represents the changes that are addressing all the concerns in those letters. So I can step through the plans a little bit to kind of talk about what Rick and Dan were talking about. On the cover sheet here, you see the locus. We have the Merrimack River. We have the Songus Arena to the west. We're on Father Morissette Boulevard. This is Lowell High School, and this is where our property is. It's right now, it's developed with the Lowell 5 Savings Bank. So we have an existing conditions plan. We show the existing bank, the Merrimack wasteways, the canals, all the grading. We did a comprehensive survey and alta plan, which shows all the detail here. As Rick said, we do have to demolish this building, so we've incorporated a demolition plan, which identifies erosion control, a construction site entrance. Right now, there's some utilities on site that we've been working with the water department to redirect, so that's identified on this plan. And also, there's being a historic mill site, the site does have historic foundations and other improvements, if you will, that are buried on site. So part of the construction process here, and perhaps why it's been difficult to develop the site in the past, is all this material here is essentially unsuitable for foundations. So we've come up with a plan to excavate the unsuitable material, process it on site, and compact it back on so that we can use it and we won't have to haul off material that's on site or bring in lots of fill. We have a layout plan, and I will just speak to this briefly. I have a colored version that you can probably see better once I just step through the plans. Like Dan was saying, we can come off of French Street and Father Morissette Boulevard. We have a turnaround here that would essentially be for shuttle buses. The existing parking lot is across the street. We don't have a plan for a lot of on-site parking. This plan also identifies, shows the U shape of the building and shows this corridor in the middle, which we can speak to also on the following plans. We've developed a grading and drainage plan. So right now, all the drainage for the site is collected in catch basins and discharges into the canal. And we would like to do the same thing. So we've redeveloped the piping around and have it coming back to essentially the same area. We've added some treatment devices in the catch basins to clean up the water, which is not there now, so we're hoping to improve the actual scenario as far as stormwater is concerned. Site utilities plan. Again, we have the existing water line that comes around here. We've worked with the water department. It's gone out to their consultant for review, and they're going to let us know whether or not we can either cap those pipes or would require rerouting here. Sewer and gas comes from the alley here, so we're just going to tie into those utilities. There's an existing transformer site. We'll move that slightly over and use the electricity there. So there's adequate utilities there on the site for us to use. This is our landscape plan, and if you can imagine, we have a building that's occupying most of the site, so we're trying to develop a student-friendly corridor in between the building, where we have tried to rely more of a hardscape. So instead of having a 5-foot wide sidewalk, we want a 10-foot wide sidewalk. We have some red brick patio areas with benches, planters, some planting beds against the building. And then we have a patio here, which is adjacent to the waterfall in the canal. So as you're sitting here, you can actually hear the water as it's flowing and bubbling away. And Rick asked us to include a gas fire pit. He mentioned in his other developments, in more southern climates, they usually do like a swimming pool or something of that nature. But being in New England, not too many people go swimming. So a fire pit to kind of hang out and have a good central location for a hangout area that's really kind of private, away from all the busy street and everything. So, yeah. Yeah, I was gonna, Dan's asking me about the pedestrian link, and I have some colored renderings that will make it easier to understand them. The city engineer asked us to incorporate the city details, which we did not have on our plan. So the last 3 sheets essentially are the details of the curbing and the pipe trenches, and we've incorporated the city details onto our plans. So I apologize, the plans are actually hard to see when it's just black and white on paper far away, so I've tried to color up this aerial photograph to give us a better understanding of how the site works. So just to locate ourselves, here's French Street to the south, here's the Princeton Plaza property to the west or northwest, parking garage, the canal here, and our project. So I've colored in green the non-impervious areas, and we show the new pavement here. Now, in this area, we have a lot of pedestrian activity going on right now. And so we wanted to try and accentuate that as much as possible to enhance that, as well as making our site work very well. So there's, I'm not sure how many apartments here, but these are, there's quite a few apartments here in the towers. And I was waiting for a meeting one day and parked here at the bank, and I saw, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 people a minute walking across the site trying to get to this side. So that made me think that a lot of our students might be going that way, and these people would help if they had a convenient way to go that way as well. So we've developed a wide sidewalk to come through here, the 6-foot wide sidewalk. That ties into our 10-foot wide walk that comes this way and exits out onto right at the head of the Boot Mill property, where the trolley goes over the bridge right there. The other thing we would like to do is bring pedestrians out front to the city street on Father Molasset Boulevard. So we've developed this concrete sidewalk with a crosswalk to access the existing ramp. If the students have a car parked in the garage, they can enter the garage, or they can walk this way to the public bus stop. Speaking of busing and vehicles, Rick is going to, as part of this project's amenities, provide a shuttle. So because it is for student housing, but because it's not part of the university system, the university can't commit to bringing a shuttle bus to the property. So that it's treated as any other commuter. So Rick will, as part of the amenities, have a shuttle bus that will come in and pick up students. They can bring them to the bus station. They can bring them to wherever they need to go. This graphic here is a little bit more of a backed out view to try and understand the pedestrian circulation a little better. So again, we know where the Songus Arena is in the garage. So we're trying to accommodate the River Place residents to let them travel this way in a safe way. The residents of our development can use the private shuttle service. They can walk across the street on an accessible route, ADA accessible route, to access the public bus, or they can come here, and I think there's a bus station also at the Songus Arena. So let's see. Some of the other features we've incorporated here is one thing architects usually forget and civil engineers worry about is what to do with trash disposal. So we have quite a few people living here, and we obviously don't want to have 300 trash barrels lined up here. So we came up with the idea of including a basement portion in the back of the building where the students can bring their trash down and have an enclosed trash compactor or a trash dumpster here. And we've brought access down this alley to the garage, and they can haul the trash out from interior. So we won't have an exterior dumpster that will be causing any nuisances for the neighbors. Loading zones. We're required by zoning to have 4 loading zones, and those would be 35 feet long by 10 feet wide. On the first set of plans, if you read the comments, there was a few comments about the loading zones blocking both the pedestrian access and this way for fire access. So we've eliminated those loading zones, and we're calling this aisle here along the alley a loading zone. It's about 89 feet long, so it's 1 short of what we need. So that's why we filed for a variance with the zoning board to reduce the amount of loading zones. For this building in particular, probably the most amount of loading will be Chinese food delivery and pizza delivery, that type of thing. Trash pickup, mail, and UPS. Some care packages home for mom, that type of thing. So that can all be accommodated in this loading zone. And because we've asked for a reduction in loading zone, we've been able to utilize this area to incorporate 2 handicap parking spaces. Right now there's 3, but they're not compliant to handicap, and in order to get from here to there, it's kind of a long way to go. So we wanted to try and bring the handicap access close to the building as possible, so we provided that there. The other feature that we have is for safety. Right now, there's a wall here, so we're planning on cutting the wall and bringing this to the same grade as the bridge. So we're planning on either side of the sidewalk to develop with a product called grass pave. So it looks like grass, it acts as grass, but it has like a plastic column system in it that you can drive a fire apparatus on. And we can bring that through here, go over the bridge and exit through here. An ambulance, a fire truck couldn't actually get in the middle, but if need be, a truck, like a pickup truck or an ambulance could actually drive all the way up to this door here. And we could bring fire apparatus around this side of the building. Obviously, we don't have access easement there, but if the building were to be, on fire, I'm sure the fire department would ask for the easement to get to the building. So we have the loading zone, you can bring fire truck here, around this way to this spot, and then there's an existing parking lot in the back. We're planning on meeting with the fire department this week to make sure that they're all squared away, to make sure they're happy with the grass pave, with the bridge access, and with the 3 sides. They also asked for some detail about the sprinkler system, which Dan has also. So that's it in a nutshell. I think hopefully I've addressed all the comments as we've come in. We had a few comments from the Conservation Commission, not too many. Main concern here is that we don't increase runoff, which we have the same amount of impervious area as we did before, or just about the same. And we're actually improving the quality of the water that comes off with the treatment devices, adding erosion control. So after this meeting, we would then go to the zoning board for special permit and the variance, and then to conservation and then historic board. So I defer back to you for any questions or comments that you have for the team.
Before I turn it over to the public, I just, as you indicated, we did receive some department comments from the senior planner, as well as the city engineer, as well as, I believe, the fire, I mean, the
Water department?
the water department, and I know as of today, you're still dealing with the water department, but could you just let us know, like, for what changes that you did on that plan that were the comments before? Like, for example, we had the city engineers that was dated May 6th. Do you have those comments in front of you?
Yeah, I actually have.
Yeah, could you just tell us if any things that you've changed or anything that's still outstanding that we should be concerned about, or?
I can, yes.
Because that way, we can check off each department comment, and it's easier to
Sure.
focus it from there, if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
I have
Why don't we
in my
start with
hand-
that one, from the city engineer?
I have in
Thank
my
you.
hand, it's a draft response that goes out to all the boards.
Okay.
It was not finalized. We needed to give one last review of the plans in the letter before it was sent out, but I can step through it real quick.
Sure, I appreciate that.
Number one, there was a couple questions about we need to apply for construction permits.
Yeah.
We need to contact the engineering department for site inspections, to submit as-built, get a driveway permit, and add a trench permit. So we've added notes to the plan to indicate that to the developer. The water connection to the street is not shown on the plans, so we have now added the water connection to the street here, and we're working with the water department to see what their requirements would be. Again, they're saying that they don't recommend to decommission the water main, so we're working with the water department's consultant there. Design of the sewer service, there's an existing sewer manhole on site. The previous plans had other infrastructure that was going there. These plans do not, so we can tie into the existing manhole that's there. They're asking if property monuments need to be installed, and if any are disturbed, we will reset them. 20-foot wide loading alley is, next to the building, is too tight for two large vehicles to pass. So we have a response for that. We're saying only one vehicle will use the west lane at a given time. So again, that's this zone here, and the other zone was the 20-foot access here, which we've eliminated. Loading spaces in front of the building block, the fire, so we've eliminated that. No fire lane is shown in the back of the building, and we're gonna meet with the fire department to ensure that the existing parking lot would be adequate. The crosswalk pattern to be continental, we've changed that. That means these parallel bars. How do students get from the building to the bus stop? So again, that plan that I showed before, we can walk out to Father Morissette Boulevard, access any of the bus stops there, in addition to the shuttle that's being provided as an amenity. And then city work hours are for certain times, we added a note to the plan. They have a notification policy about notifying the businesses and neighbors in the neighborhood, so we've added that note to the plan. Street utilities, they're asking us to add the city standard for right-of-way hydrants, curbing, handicap ramps, and detectable warning paths, so we've added the notes and details for those. Stormwater, asking for operation and maintenance plan. So we will add the note to the operation and maintenance plan. It hasn't been, it's not in my hand right now. Same thing with the operation logs. So that's part of the NIPD's permitting, so if when it rains out to ensure there's no erosion going off-site. Construction site entrance, we added that on the plan. And location and dewatering and discharge to be shown on the plan. I discussed earlier how we need to remove all the rubble and things underneath the site, and it does occupy the entire site. So we're going to have to use a phased approach. We can't just excavate one giant hole into the ground and say, we're gonna be discharging here and a stockpile will be there. So it'll be more of a dynamic thing. But the main point is that all the stockpiles will be on the site, won't be on neighboring properties, and that stormwater discharge won't go into the canalway. It will be treated on site. Catchment areas, they asked that we provide the plan. I believe it was submitted, but we can resubmit it. It basically shows the areas that are impervious in the pre-development condition versus the impervious areas in the post-development condition. So we can provide that to them. We've added the erosion control plan to the demolition plan. They're asking that we inspect erosion control every 24 hours. That's part of the SWIP. We can do that. Does an outfall into the wasteway currently exist? There is an outfall. We will need to modify it. Right now, I think it's a small pipe, so we want to increase it. And they're asking us to get permission from Eno? Is that right, the power company? So if permission's needed, we will talk to them and get that. They asked to add a treatment feature to manhole 8. The reason why we did not have a treatment feature in manhole 8 is because it takes most of the runoff from the roof. And so we would be diluting it. So we would ask that, we'd like to talk to engineering about that. But if they demand it, then we can put it in. It's not a problem. Water elevation, the wasteway, the outfall is above the water elevation. They're asking us about soils being reused on site. In our narrative, we say that if we encounter unsuitable materials, they'll be managed properly. So in the case where we've done a lot of mill redevelopment projects and you start digging a hole and you don't know what you're gonna find. So we found underground storage tanks before, we've found buried debris here and there, and what we're trying to say is if we encounter those type of things, we won't bury them and put them back in the ground. They'll be removed and managed in accordance with the MCP, so they'll be shipped off-site. Our firm, actually, we have LSPs on staff, licensed site professionals that could, and the plans say on there, if you encounter any sort of strange buried debris, to contact us right away, so we can manage it. Stormwater calculations, we can ask them to review that. NIPD's permit required, we agree. And snow disposal into the city right away is strictly prohibited, and we put a note on the plan, we agree with that. So that was the comments from the city engineer. We have additional comments from fire prevention. Want to step through any of those?
Sure, which ones do you have next? Do you have?
I have fire prevention.
Okay.
So they're saying that we don't show any hydrants on the property, so we've added a hydrant at the patio, and we've added a hydrant near the front. And we have hydrants existing on the site within 300 feet as well. And the building is sprinklered, and we'll have a booster pipe. Vehicle access is less than satisfactory, and they're asking for a vehicle turn simulation. So they've given me the specifications of their design vehicle, and when we meet with them this week, we'll be able to show them how their vehicle can access the site. They're asking for a turnaround, and they have some complaints about this access. So we've since eliminated the loading spaces, so we can come right through here. And then he's saying all parts of the first floor of the building are not within 100 feet of fire department access road. So we've shown that we have access roads, and we've actually looked at our sprinkler system, which requires a greater distance than 150 feet. It's 250 feet. So we need to talk to the fire department about that. You know, that's issues for them. Next, we have senior planner comments.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Again, we're talking about demolishing the building, unsuitable material to be hauled off-site. We're asking for a plan showing erosion control, limited work, stockpile, and construction material stockpile, and snow storage areas. So we've added erosion control, the limit of work, the soil stockpile, and dewatering areas. It's tough to show that on the plan, but we can commit that we will keep all the stockpile areas on site and that we will not dewater into the canal, we'll dewater on site. Erosion and sediment control plan is not provided, so we've added details onto the demolition plan. And they asked the stormwater system be reviewed by the city engineer, which it is. UMass office had some comments, and they say that they do not service private property. They're saying that they will not provide the bus service. So as an amenity, we're going to provide our own shuttle service. And then they're saying that we could potentially be adding trip generation depending on what traffic is there. So we have these existing parking spaces now. The other parking spaces we have are in the garage that we can lease, and we have, I think Rick is looking to get an agreement from other parking garages in the area. So we're going to be utilizing existing parking spaces that are available and not, with the exception of the 2 handicap spaces and loading spaces, not adding any parking. Then we have the transportation division. Which they identify that students will tend to walk, bike, or ride the shuttle bus. They're saying that they would like to see more handicap spaces. So we have 47 spaces here. The requirement is 2. We have 2, and we have added 2 additional. Oh, yeah, and Dan mentioned also, because students do like to bicycle and things like that, we're trying to reduce the amount of traffic, vehicle traffic, and increase pedestrian and bicycle traffic. So in this basement, Dan has incorporated a bicycle storage area, so you don't have to have your bicycle in your dorm, in your apartment. And there's a door here, and you can leave through this area and bike on your way to school. They asked that we adjust the entrance and the pedestrian access from the revised plan, and this accomplishes that. And again, they harken back to the idea that UMass Lowell will not give rides to the students, so we have a private shuttle. They recommend, oh, okay, this is interesting. They recommend this alley here, it's 16, 17 feet wide. It's between the Princeton Plaza and the parking garage. It's 2-way traffic. It's used by some pedestrians to go along. You can see where they kind of jump up on the curb and walk along. It's not a very pedestrian and vehicle-friendly way to go. They recommend that we widen it, include security lighting, talk to the owner, add sidewalks, etc. We are not proposing to change that alley. Instead, we're proposing to encourage the pedestrians to use the more safe and adequate pedestrian way that already exists along the garage and along Father Morrissey Boulevard. Going this way, when I drove down that road, I felt uncomfortable just driving there, and I'm sure that if I were a student and I walked that way, I would have the same feeling just walking. So instead of improving this alley, which is on an abutter's property and would have physical difficulty improving, we're trying to encourage as good as possible to get to the good pedestrian access ways here. They asked that we have ADA compliant crosswalks, so we added a note to redesign the traffic circle, which we've done that. They asked to move the sign. Right now, there's a sign for the adjacent property, and it's within the right-of-way to the property. So we've met with the owner of the property, and we're working on a solution of where to move their sign. So they're agreeable to moving it, and we're working with either putting it on their property. There's actually a small postage stamp little piece of land owned by the city that we're working with the city to try and get that parcel, maybe put the sign there. Add a stop line, we did that. One-way keep right signs, we've done that. They're asking to restripe and sign the trolley crossing areas. We will definitely work with National Park Service, and whatever we need to do here to improve that can certainly be done. We actually need to work with them a little because there are some of their infrastructure is on the property, like the poles that hang the wires and things. So we'll be working with them to move their poles, and we can adjust any of the pavement edge and things of that nature. Again, nobody likes the loading zones. They didn't either, so we removed those 2 loading zones. And then the pedestrian flow from this parking lot to this parcel is unclear. There's an existing sidewalk here. We can go right across onto this pedestrian way, or we can travel this way to the front. And the senior planner had made 10 comments. Fire safety. Variance for number of loading bays should be detailed. So we've applied for the variance. We've eliminated the 2 loading spaces and added them here. And as far as deliveries, we've talked about that. It's just mail, UPS, pizza deliveries. She had some comments about the width of the access, so we've revised that. It's 24 feet all the way around and then 18 here. Before it was tapering and it was confusing, so we've modified that. Stormwater, we have treatment devices in the catch basins that actually service vehicle ways that actually generate pollution. The other areas of drainage with the rooftops and the grassed areas is essentially clean stormwater, so we're asking to not do that for those. She's asking us to work with the water department and the sewer department, which we are. Show erosion control limit of work, that's now on the plan. And then the water department had comments about their pipe, and we've submitted to their consultant. So that's everything. Sorry to bore everybody to death, but I think it was necessary to go through the comments.
That's quite all right. It was very well presented.
Thank you.
I mean, we like when you go through department comments one at a time, because it's easier for us to pick up instead of each one of us chisel away at you while you're up there, so.
Sure.
So it's easier just to have you address them all before we turn over to everybody else's comments. So I appreciate that. I know the board members do as well. Thank you. Anything else from the applicant at this time? If not, I'll turn it over to the public. Mr. Martin, anybody else? No? Okay. Anybody here this evening want to speak in favor of the project? Anybody in favor? In favor? In favor? Anybody in opposition?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. My name is Jeff Brown. I'm Vice President and General Counsel to Princeton Plaza, LLC. While you indicated we're either speaking in favor or in opposition, I think we'd characterize Princeton as being neither at this point. We own the abutting apartment community, so we have just gone through a significant capital improvement at our property. This is a significant development, so we're just interested in understanding what's going on, and perhaps a question for you or for Bill as to how this process is going to work. We've already had a few discussions with Rick about a few issues that are common to both of us, and I know Rick's committed to be a good neighbor, and I think Princeton can make a similar commitment that in the end, that's what's going to serve both of us the best. So I think my standing up here tonight is just really to understand that we're next door and to understand how the process goes forward. I don't think I've ever been involved in a process in which you really have two land use committees, if you would. You have the Zoning Board of Appeals with the special permit and the Planning Board with site plan review. So I just want to understand how that process will go forward, whether it's peer review, comments from various boards. We may have some comments that we wish to raise, and I think we just want to understand, where that forum is going to be and how it's going to be handled. But so far, we've had some good discussions with Bill and with Rick. Tried to make progress on some issues, still some work to do. And like any big project like this, it'll go through a lot of iterations, and we just want to be part of that process and understand how the process goes forward. So I guess my general question to you, Mr. Chairman, or perhaps Bill Martin can comment is, how will the two boards work together? How will that work in a sense of peer review of issues?
Well, I can, for behalf of the planning board, if any site plan that we approve with any conditions upon it, those conditions remain on it when it goes before the Zoning Board of Appeals for approval. So what would happen if the Zoning Board of Appeals approved it with whatever relief they're requesting, that would be a condition upon our conditions as well.
As I understand it, both processes will parallel. So it sounds like you'll have an exchange of conditions at some point. The ZBA will be
so anything
identifying some conditions. You'll be identifying conditions. So it sounds like that process will be parallel.
See, they have the authority for any type of, I believe in this case, let me just back up here. They have the zoning variance, which is what, for the loading bay?
That's right.
Right. And the other one is for the special permit, for that's what, the relief within this zone?
They're the special permit granting authority to have a special permit to allow this use.
In that zone?
Yes.
Okay.
The dormitory use, I believe, is a special
So
permit.
those are the two main things the Zoning Board of Appeals will approve. All the other conditions sit with us on site plan, which is as indicated by all the department comments that came before us. So once...
So general site aesthetics,
That's all.
traffic,
That's all. That's
stormwater
all.
management, I assume will be a Conservation Commission issue, or
Yeah.
perhaps addressed through the planning board?
Right, because when we get comments from staff, and we believe we got them from staff here, they also give comments to the various other boards. So our staff people in-house, with Judy here, she's our senior planner, whoever attends this meeting here, they attend the ZBA, Conservation, and pass on the information that was given to us. So if it was approved by us with a certain set of conditions, that would go before the Zoning Board of Appeals. They would know what we've approved already and what our conditions are. So then, like I said, they can't take away those conditions. Any condition that they may add, piggybacked on top of our conditions. So basically, we have the bulk of it. They just have the limited things, whether they want to allow that in the zone and whether they want to allow them to have one less bay. So we get the bulk of it, and they have the special permit. It's the tough one, because on that one, you need 4 out of 5 votes. We're here at site plan, also you need the majority vote. And then, when it goes before the historic board, we have the chairman sitting here next to us, because one of our representatives on the planning board sits on the historic board. So, Rich gets it double barrel twice, so.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Welcome, sir. Thank you for coming down.
Yeah, really.
Does anybody else want to speak in regards to the project? Either for or against? I know Mr. Brown was really for or against, but we listen either way, whatever. So the only two questions I have before I turn it over to anybody else that didn't want to speak is, so basically, you submit a new set of plans from all the department comments, right?
They have yet to be submitted. This is the draft plan here.
Okay, so Judy, we haven't got the new plans as of yet, okay. And my understanding is now you're still working with the fire department and the water department, right?
Right.
To
right.
satisfy whatever concerns they have.
That's right.
Because I think we received a couple of emails today, just briefly, from Judy, that you were talking back and forth with the water sewer department, correct? To try to, and I think some of her comments are what you addressed earlier that came out from water and sewer.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So having said that much, at this point, I'll turn it out to any board members who have any follow-up. So, Mr. Martin, if you want to go ahead?
Yeah, just on the water department. So we have asked that this main be capped. We don't necessarily think there's a need for it, but if the water department insists on keeping it and looping it, we'll just do that. So we're gonna agree to what they require. We just need to have the technical people agree on what is required. So I don't think there's gonna be an issue there. It's just a matter of what the solution is.
So basically, what you're saying is, you will work with them to their satisfaction.
Yes.
That a good way to put it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. And basically the same with the fire department then?
That's right.
Okay.
We obviously do not want to have a project that the fire department is not
Because,
satisfied with.
see, that's one of the concerns we have on the site plan that falls under our purview. If the fire department says it doesn't work, that's an issue for us, obviously. I mean, because it comes under the site plan for the wealth, safety and welfare of the people in the project. Okay. Having said that, by looking at some of the concerns the fire department has, do you have any concerns about meeting those concerns, or do you think that's something doable once you speak with them? I mean, the sprinkler system's not a big deal, obviously, right?
Yeah, the sprinkler system we have installed is going to be the top of the line type of, it's the best
For
sprinkler
that many units, you really need it.
Yeah.
Plus, the insurance comes down quite a bit for the owner when you have their sprinkler system in there, which,
You gotta have it.
but I mean, you need it because of that many units.
Oh, yeah.
Right, no, it's required by code, and
I mean, yeah.
and the comment that they sent, they said originally that we were over 150 feet. With the NFPA 13 sprinkler system and NFPA 14 standpipe system, we're allowed by the mass amendments in the fire code to go 250 feet from the access point. So from these access roads, we're able to go 250 feet, not 150 feet. So we're pretty confident that we can make it around all sides of the building with that. And then, plus the fact that we have the parking lot back here, that they're allowed to use the parking lots as access. So,
So your parking lot right behind your site, right? Yeah.
yes, yeah. So I'm hopeful that, we can,
Kind of drops off there in the back, right?
yes, it does, yeah. Sorry.
Yep. If they have any concerns about the grading, about accessing because it's lower, we can accommodate that. We can put in a stair or change the grading in the back so that it's their satisfaction. The reason why we haven't yet gone to the fire department was we were working with the neighbor about how to, address the turnaround. So I hadn't finalized the design of the turnaround until very recently, and I didn't want to go to the fire department until I could answer any of their questions with their access. So we've just recently got all the access designed, and now we can go to the fire department and show them that they should be satisfied.
Just to follow up on that, most likely, so a fire truck would come in through your main access if need be, right? Yep. And then you feel they can get in through the back if need be, with the rear of your property, right?
Yep.
And would they have any other way to come by to the far right, or are they just basically those two, or can they get in that way if need be?
They can get in this way. This is a wooden bridge here. The trolley goes over it now.
Okay, yeah, you said that, I'm sorry,
Yep.
okay.
So we're going to look at that and make sure the fire truck can go there. The fire truck cannot come up this way. They can't make that turn, but they'd be able to come straight through. They had a question about the grass pave, so we have details that we can present to them. We've used that on many projects. We've done a lot of like 3-story and above office buildings in Dartmouth and medical buildings, et cetera. And we use that product, and we've seen it demonstrated, and it works great. If they don't like it, we can certainly provide, crushed stone on the side or whatever type of treatment that they like. We can provide it. Oh, yeah, and they asked about hydrants. So again, working with the water department, they recommended a hydrant where we changed from the large pipe here. So we have a new hydrant here and a new hydrant here. And if they ask for a hydrant anywhere else, we can certainly put it there.
All right, thank you very much. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to any comments from the board members. Okay, I'll start with Mr. Lockhart.
One of the overriding concerns that I had even before you made your presentation was public safety and pedestrian traffic. And relative to that, I have 2 questions. One, You didn't talk about outside lighting. Can you just address that and what you plan on doing?
Well, I don't have any exterior light poles shown on the plan, but Dan, maybe you have some lighting, like at the pedestrian level throughout the corridors, or?
Through this open space between the buildings, we'll obviously have some lighting there. I'm still working with Steve Stoll and Historic. We can talk about lighting on the building, or if any, is there some existing poles out here or no?
There's some existing poles in the parking lot to illuminate the parking lot, but those will obviously be removed, so.
We can look at, additional lighting in the front if.
Yeah, whatever is appropriate, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, as long as it's being addressed.
Yep.
And the other question I had, you're directing pedestrian traffic down to the boulevard there.
To the boulevard.
No, down to the street level. Do you see any need for additional crosswalks at any point? And if so,
Yes, so we have a crosswalk here shown that brings, part of the American Disabilities Act requirement is that you have what's referred to as an accessible route.
Right.
So that includes an accessible ramp at the sidewalk, and it includes a detectable warning strip, so a blind person could detect that they're about to step into traffic, and it includes striping to alert the vehicles. Right now, this roadway isn't all that friendly because it starts off narrow, it widens out. I've seen when vehicles come in, they start following the yellow striping on the right. They come this way, they realize they can't go that way, and they suddenly jerk this way. So on this plan, I show a painted line here only because we haven't worked out with the trolley people what they want. But I would like to make this parallel with either painting or with the pavement, improve the radiuses here. I think one of the comments from the engineer is that we repair any sidewalk here that might be damaged or any of the asphalt. Right. We can add this crosswalk here. And this is the overall plan, and there's an existing crosswalk here.
so you're gonna tie it, yeah, that's.
I hesitate, I almost drew one here across Father Morissette Boulevard, but I hesitate.
That's what I was getting at when I asked the question.
Yeah.
You know, right at that point, shouldn't there be something?
Yeah, here we go from a divided road, which has 4 lanes, to a striped road with 2 lanes. Well, it might be 4 lanes, but it starts, there's a vehicle movement there where the vehicles need to pay attention to. So I hesitate to add a pedestrian movement in there as well, and instead to utilize this existing crosswalk and this existing crosswalk here, which is away from both the curb cuts in the road and that narrow.
So there's another one down there, yeah, okay.
Yeah, here.
All right, I think you probably have it covered then. Okay. Thank you, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Snetsky?
I'm impressed by the fact that you've been able to address some of the, most of all of the issues that all the departments have had, and, subject to, you're getting final resolution with them. I think, you've done a great job of addressing them, and, I would be ready to move forward once those are all addressed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dick. Mr. Fischett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is what we put the Section 7.8 privately developed and/or operated dormitories into the zoning ordinance. So the purpose was to encourage the privately owned dormitories that will pay tax dollars to the city of Lowell and provide a service to the 2 universities that we have here. Just cover some from that section. There's some specific requirements, and it's subject to planning board approval. It's and it's on-site management staff and having some minimum standards that are in that section. Counselor, if you could address some of that, please.
Sure. Rick maybe knows more about the ratios, but this would be staffed with, I'm told we don't call them resident assistants anymore, they're community assistants, right? But there are, be community assistants on every floor. The exact ratio, I think, do we know what the typical ratio is? Go ahead.
Hi. Basically, the way we manage our facilities is we have a full-time leasing manager, we have a full-time manager, we have full-time maintenance, which basically gives us adult supervision 24 hours a day, and a combination of those. We generally have what we call community assistants, and generally we have at least one per floor. In this facility, because of the wing nature, so we would probably have 2 community assistants per floor, which would give us a total of 10. Now, what the community assistants do is, besides their responsibility in the building, they also give us access to points in the school where normally we would not be able to have access to. So they have dual roles. They get a discount in their rooms, and they also are paid an hourly wage for whatever work they're doing. The other thing that we do in our facilities from a security standpoint, have access cameras in the corridors, cameras in the common areas. We also use a fob system, so that fob will get the young adults into the facility. So it's keyed access, so no one can get into the facility without having one of our guests or one of our residents come and let them in. That fob also gets them into their unit inside the building, and then also secures their room inside the unit. As far as we've managed successfully now, this will be our 6th project. We're an in-house management company. We lease and manage our own properties.
Okay. Has a plan been provided to DPD at all? Because that is a minimum requirement. Am I missing, section 7.8.3 conditions, dormitories developed or operated by private or for-profit organizations must provide the following minimum performance standards. Such standards shall be reviewed and approved by the planning board as part of the public hearing for site plan review, and shall, at a minimum, include the following. And that's where the on-site management staff, a minimum of 1 on-site security guard at all times when the building is occupied, property management on-site or on call 24 hours a day, a full-time living community assistant professionally trained or provided support. And it goes on. I mean, there's some specifics. I'm just curious if a plan has been submitted, because then it goes on to section C. This is a clearly delineated and advertised policy that defines resident responsibilities and behavioral expectations, as well as response to policy infractions shall be submitted to the planning board for review and approval. The approved policy shall be posted in the building, provided to all residents, and provided to institutional security and the city police. The policy shall indicate that the policy infraction shall be reported to the institution. I mean, do we have anything been submitted at all, Judy?
They have not submitted up the policy as of yet.
I mean, that's part of incorporated in site plan review.
Again, that's something that would be, it's just an oversight. I mean, we have a management plan and everything that's in place. That's relatively easy for us to provide.
Yeah. So we did submit some general language in the narrative, but certainly not the specific plan. We actually wanted to solicit feedback from the board to see if there were certain things that you wanted, but that is our intent. That's not a big reach for us.
Yeah, I understand. It's just, it is specific as to what we should be approving as part of site plan review. So again, asking the question, as I don't believe departments had a chance to review what was submitted today, or have they?
No.
So I'm just curious if in fact you had that with you this evening as well. Okay. Also, if we could have a clarification on the parking that's on site on that second lot, and then the parking that's in the AYART garage, because I believe the transportation engineer, and I didn't hear that being addressed, but the parking provided in the adjoining AYART garage, 180 spaces, in parcel 248 exceeds the required 218 spaces needed. So So we're covered as far as what we're required within those two spaces, is that? And then you're providing an excess of that, looking for agreements with other parking garages within the city, is that?
That's what the parking engineer was able to make available to us, so.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right, so I just wanted to make sure there was a clear understanding as where we are. So what you're looking for above and beyond that is just if there's a need for it, you would
Right,
have that
if there's a
available.
need, we'll have a place to send those students.
Okay. And I have to say, I like the design. When you look at the location of the building and you look at the surrounding buildings, the mill buildings that are there, I think you've done a good job to try to capture the spirit of the surrounding architecture. Also, I have to say to Mr. Brown, they are doing a fantastic job on that property. My daughter and son-in-law happen to live there for a little over a year. They just moved out recently, and I'm thoroughly impressed with what's going on over there. So you are to be congratulated for that. I'm very, very impressed, actually. And certainly, this is the type of development we're looking to see with the dormitory ordinance. We do have one other one in the city that has been a success, and certainly this is in keeping. When I look at the history of the building, it's owned by the Lowell 5, but it goes back to Omar Bourgeois and Union National Bank, and it was his commitment to urban renewal in that particular area. Unfortunately, urban renewal was an experiment that we all know how that ended. However, I think we're seeing a new renaissance in the city, and a lot of it has to do with the two universities that are in the city. And I think this complements the renaissance of the university within the city and the city itself. It's private development, privately owned, and certainly I think it will be a good addition to that particular location. And I want to commend your thought on the crosswalks, because that is a very tricky spot over there where it goes from 2 lanes to 4 lanes each way. So it's nice that you did give that some thought, because that is a difficult spot. I think trying to encourage everyone to use the signal. I mean, there's a signalized crosswalk that's not very far from there that ties you right into the AI garage.
Right there, yeah.
Exactly.
That one.
And then crossing with the 2 lanes is a much easier, much easier for the pedestrian rather than trying to make it across 4 lanes. So you've given that adequate thought. Other than obviously the technical review of the departments, I think you've done a good job to adequately address a lot of the concerns. There's still some outstanding items, but I don't see anything there that's not surmountable, that's for sure. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Fischett. Mr. Boyle?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was also going to bring up section 7.8. Glad to hear you soliciting input. In addition to submitting performance standards in terms of the management, the community assistance, and whatnot, there is also section D, which talks about the transportation demand management plan. To me, what makes this a dormitory and therefore not required to meet the parking requirements of a multifamily residential development is the transportation plan, is the shuttle bus, and whatever else you're doing to make sure that the experience of the people living there is like as close as possible to living in an on-campus residence hall. And that is going, and a large part of that is that they don't have to drive to campus. So there needs to be, there are requirements here indicating that you provide regular shuttle bus service between the dormitory and the institution. up higher, 7.82 applicability, dormitories developed and/or operated by private for-profit organizations must meet a standard substantially similar to those typically provided by the primary institution it serves. I put those together, and what I get is that the shuttle bus service you're providing has to be at least comparable to the shuttle bus service that's being provided by the university in terms of availability, in terms of scheduling. So I think it's very much under the jurisdiction of this board to look at, to dig down a little bit into the details in terms of what the scheduling is going to be, how many shuttle buses you're providing, what types of shuttle buses, looking at the capacity of those versus the living in the dorm versus the numbers of students in the dorms, in the dorm itself. And so we're really going to need a detailed transportation plan as it calls for in here, and not just a condition on our approval that says the applicant shall provide shuttle bus service. This needs to be, this plan and the enforceability of it, I think, needs to be substantial. The shuttle bus service needs to be provided and needs to be adequate in order for this dormitory to continue operating into the future. Okay, the city needs a very high degree of confidence that we know exactly what it is the applicant's going to be doing in order to meet this transportation, requirement. Another issue that that occurs to me is that unlike the Broadway Street private dorm, there doesn't appear to be, or correct me, perhaps there is, and I'm misunderstanding, any formal relationship between you and the university. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And I think that needs, there was litigation because of the relationship between the private dorm and the university, which we don't really want to embrace.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I think the university has been, cordial to us, but they've made it clear that this is on us, and so it is different in that way.
Okay, what I'm getting at is that somebody living in an on-campus dormitory owned by UMass, or even living in the private dorm that's operated UMass, can face university sanctions, not just housing sanctions, for misbehavior in the dorms. I want to see that as a part of Section 7.8.3 here, a clearly delineated advertising policy that defines resident responsibilities and behavioral expectations, as well as response to policy infractions. The last line of that is, the policy shall indicate that policy infractions shall be reported to the institution. This section and the entire idea of privately owned dorms presupposes a relationship. And if there isn't such a relationship, if there are not, for example, potential academic, potential school consequences for misbehavior in here, then I'm not sure we're actually talking about the land use dormitory. I think that kicks it over into the land use multifamily residential. So,
well,
I will be
think
looking in the future to see that that the letter and spirit of this section is being met in terms of both particularly in terms of the transportation and in terms of the behavioral code.
So I'll let Rick address this, but certainly that's been our method of operation in our other locations.
Mm-hmm.
So we're happy to submit more detail on that, that I think you'll be happy with. As far as the relationship with the university, we can report, but we usually we have good ways of enforcing the behavioral code. Right?
What we do differently than most of the folks in our industry is we reach out to the schools and we want to work as closely with them as they'll allow us, okay? When we say we don't have any relations with the school, we're saying that they're not going to master lease our facility. We're independent of that. Now, what we do have is a 12-month parental guaranteed lease. If a young adult is misbehaving in our facility, we put them out and the parents pay us anyway. Okay? But you can check on our website. You go into our website, you reach out to the folks at Wake Forest. Our facility at Deacon Station was geared 300 young adults in townhomes down there. If you would call that university, they would recommend our facility for young adults to live. We run a very sophisticated business. We want young adults to have a good experience. They're our best salespeople. If they're not having a good experience, we're not going to be successful, okay? But we have as much, if not more, control over the young adults than the schools, simply because they might have a little bit more flexibility with the school, okay, than they do with us. If they don't adhere to our policies, they get put out, their parents pay us, and we'll see you later. So we do have student life policies. Our staff are trained in crisis management. We do matching, just like they would, well, even we do a better job, because at school, when you first come in as a young adult, they just kind of put you in a random room. We actually, you know, interview people. We have applications they fill out. So when we're doing our matching in rooms, if young adults don't come in with a roommate, we match them. So, you know, not to be rude or crude, this isn't our first rodeo, and our reputation is all we have, right? So, you know, we're very diligent in our efforts, and again, it's very important for the young adults to have a good experience, okay? I'll share a story with you. First project we did was Shippensburg University in Pennsylvania, state school, probably maybe 1/3 of the cost of Wake Forest University. We ran a shuttle there. The young adults won't get on the shuttle because they looked at it as a stigma because they were taking a bus to school. At Wake Forest, if a class ran 10 minutes late, we'd get a call from a young adult and say, hey, can you send the shuttle for me? They looked at it like it was their private chauffeur. So all these, everyone you go in is different, okay? And we adjust to our market. I could give you a marketing plan right now, and I could say we're going to do things this way. Until we start having our facility lived in by young adults, we have to adjust to our market, because every market you go to is different. I'll share another story. We're in Worcester right now. We have 30,000 undergrads, right? We have a 251-bed facility, 30,000 undergrads there. Our facility is filling up with all grad students and residents from UMass Medical. Go figure. You know, so we have an older population. Surely we weren't counting on that, but that's what's happened, you know. So, you know, you go in with all your intents and all your planning, and, you know, but we do have rigid policies, and when you see the amenities, and I would love for folks to come down to Worcester, it's a 40-minute drive, and see what we've done down there. We create a friendly, warm atmosphere for these young adults. We try to make it as social as we can. We provide areas for them to do that. We provide areas for them to pursue group studies, you know, so there's a lot of things that we do. We promote student life. I mean, it's very important. You know, we want to be the facility for these young adults. And it's not Animal House, you know. It's not John Belushi and the boys, you know. It's not what we're about. But we want to provide a good, safe place for these folks to live. You know, we have, you know, 5 or 6 parties a year with licensed professionals, and you know, we do things the right way. But it's very important that whatever marketplace we're in, that we become the desirable place. Thank you for your time. You have a question for me?
Yeah, another question I have is that when UMass owns one of its dorms like Fox Hall, or even the one on Broadway Street where it has the lease, it is perfectly lawful for them to only rent to UMass students. Are you able to do that?
Well, it depends on the approval process, okay? For instance, in Worcester, when we came to Worcester, all right, we were approved specific as a purpose-built student housing facility. Now, we're in Massachusetts, so you have fair marketing, and, you know, we have to entertain anyone that comes to our facility, okay? But we are a sanctioned, approved student housing facility. So part of what our approval process was a TIF from the city and an HDIP award from the state. Initially, we were turned down by the state because they said we were not market rate housing and we were a discriminatory asset class. Well, the city solicitor from Worcester did some research and he actually found that student housing is above market rate housing, okay? And it is also non-discriminatory within itself. But we have to literally document everybody who reaches out to us. You know, we have a very sophisticated computer program where we call a lead system, so we have to address anybody who comes from us. But being a purpose-built student housing facility, as long as we don't discriminate in the student class, we're okay with fair housing.
So you're okay with fair housing to only rent to students, as long as you don't discriminate among students?
That's correct.
Okay.
Now, I'm not a lawyer, but that's my understanding of it. And again, the way things worked out in Worcester, we have, you know, a bunch of grad students, we have some residents, so we have other people besides, if you would, undergrad students. So it's kind of worked out to our benefit there.
Okay, so perhaps I should address this question to the attorney. If this board were to include a condition saying the only students enrolled in an institution of higher learning located in the city of Lowell were allowed to lease there, would that be a problem?
I don't know about only in the city of Lowell.
Okay,
you
okay,
know,
fine, take that away.
But,
Would it be legal to, would we be able to condition it on you only letting students live there?
I think we're in compliance with zoning at that point. I mean, as to fair housing laws, well, we could do some research, but Rick's experience is that, yes, we'd be in compliance.
Okay.
I don't know about Massachusetts.
Right, okay. And federally would be in compliance. We need to do some work in Massachusetts law there.
Okay.
And, you know, we hear you loud and clear about the need for the detail on the behavior policies and the transportation plan. We're happy to provide that.
Okay. There's certain differences between a very large multifamily residential use and a privately owned dorm. And at the heart of that is that the privately owned dorm is occupied by students who have an experience, and there are certain facilities and services, the transportation and the residential oversight, which operate consistently with a UMass dorm, with the college's dorm. And I want to make sure that all three of those conditions are firmly and formally entrenched in the decision that authorizes this, because, again, there isn't that formal relationship with the university that we had with the other similar project. So that's where I'm coming from. I want to make sure this is really a dorm and will stay really a dorm, and that we can enforce it to be really a dorm operating as really a dorm through our and the zoning board's decision.
Understood.
Now, I'm pleased by the level of thought that's been put into the pedestrian plan. That's really what makes this a winner from the city's point of view, is pulling these students into the downtown, making them, contribute to the street life. The fact that you're taking into account that people from River Place cut across, and as you're designing your pedestrian plan. That shows the type of thinking about your context and how you relate to the downtown that I would hope to see from somebody developing this site. I want to talk a little more about that alley. The staff is recommending improvements on it.
Well, the alley is, I mean, it's a direct connection to the circle in front of the AAD garage. I mean, it is owned by Princeton Properties.
Right.
So, as you heard, the applicant has had, significant conversations with Princeton, and they have raised their own concerns about using that alleyway. The width of it. So I think, at this point, we do need to have a look at the plans that they're presenting tonight with the improvements that they've made.
Yeah, it's just in terms of we're going to try to encourage and that type of language, it's a lot easier to herd and control automotive traffic than pedestrian traffic, especially when we're talking about college students. So if that turns out to be the convenient, accessible route that residents would use to get to the North Campus or the East Campus, then they're going to use it. If they walk out their door and they see that that's that route and that's the one that, we all have this experience, that's the one that seems like it's going to where I'm going to go, people are going to walk on it. And it would either need to be improved or it would need to be shut off so that people don't do that. I realize we can't really compel this because it's a neighbor's property, but thinking in terms of making your facility work and the way you want it to, this is something I'd hope the applicant would think seriously about.
Actually, part of the thinking that the staff had was the fact that there is an existing UMass shuttle service that pulls up right in front of the AAD garage. And so coming out of a new dorm building, that direct route to where that shuttle service is, we could see, students just walking down that alleyway. But now they're saying that they're going to provide their own shuttle service. So you don't have that attraction of having people walking down that alleyway if the bus is going to be they're having their own bus right outside the door. So that really eliminates that attraction to be walking down that alley.
Okay, does it, in terms of, being there and being in the space and somebody's walking out the front door of that, they want to walk to the student union building there at the end of Pawtucket Street. How are they going to go?
I'm unfamiliar with that. Where is that located?
The West Campus area, near where Fox Hall is and...
So, you're right, when you say we engineer pedestrian pathways all the time, and we say, here's the sidewalk for you pedestrians, please walk on it, and you oftentimes see the sidewalks and you see a path through the grass where the pedestrians are walking, okay? So, we have, like you said, with traffic, it's easy to direct traffic because you use what we call an engineering control. You put the curbing there, you put the asphalt, the cars belong on the asphalt. In this case, we'd have to, like when you try and mitigate things, you can use engineering controls and you can use administrative controls. And I think in this case, because we are in a dormitory setting and we're going to have a management plan which sets an expectation of the behavior of the students, we can incorporate that into that plan and recommend to them that says, this pedestrian pathway is not a safe way for you to walk. Please use this way. And we can actually put in, if you want to get to location A, this is the best way to go. If you want to get location B, here's the number for the shuttle. And try to incorporate the pedestrian routes possibly into the plan that we have, both the traffic plan and the administrative plan. I don't know if that sounds like a good idea or not, Rick, but, you know, just, again, you can't, it's difficult to put a gate there and say, that's really the only way, even if you did put a fence there, like there's a fence around here, the fence is cut and there's people that walk through the fence. So it's a matter of trying to make the preferred route as comfortable as possible and making the non-preferred route uncomfortable, if you will, and let them know about it. So again, it took me one time to drive down this alley before I told myself, I don't want to drive down this alley anymore unless I really have to. And I think if a student walked down this way, they wouldn't walk down that way too many times before they realized, if there's a better route for me to take, I think I'd take it. Physically, as far as in expanding that site, I did go up and down here a little bit. I mean, it's a narrow alley, there's a curb, and then there's a 2-to-1 slope straight up to the Princeton property, and onto the other side that drops off right into the garage area. So to actually physically improve it would be difficult without a lot of construction, you know, without a lot of work there, meaning retaining walls and that type of thing, and a big change to that area, which we haven't considered.
Those students who park in the garage, is there a garage entrance at that northeast corner?
There is.
There is, okay.
It's right here.
Okay.
So we're bringing, and the reason the ramp is here, not there, is the accessible ramp is there, so we're bringing it.
And then they'd get, that's a locked door, they'd have,
I believe there's an access code to that or a key fob there. Yeah.
okay. Okay. Which then they would get as part of their lease, when they lease a space.
Yeah.
Okay. Would the individual students be leasing a space, or would they be assigned a space by the property management when they move in, instead of being told, your space is in the garage, your space is on the surface lot?
They individually, we'd direct them how to do it, but they would have their own parking pass agreement with the city. Each individual with a car. Not every student's gonna have a car.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
So for students with,
Okay. All right, those were my main concerns. The only planting you'd be talking about on the site is inside that courtyard space, right?
No, we added a little bit more on the south side as well. So, excuse me for glossing over some of the features that we had here, but inside we have grass, and because it's between the buildings, we're actually going to do a turf grass, a synthetic grass in between, so it will grow and not need maintenance. We have planters here, and we have planting beds, and we have a list of herbaceous and perennial plants that do well in the shade.
Okay.
Along the wall, we've selected different trees to be like pedestrian level, shorter trees that'd be nice to walk by on the walkway. We have, let's see, triple monarch birch. We have some shorter plants like Japanese Andromeda, mountain laurel, so nothing that's going to grow up super high and cause a nuisance for maintenance. And then right here along here, the south foundation plantings, we're asking for things like spirea, dwarf boxwoods, cranberry cotoneaster, dwarf witch alder, so some short species. Right now, along the wall, there's like a yew hedge, and the yew hedge comes up kind of high, and it would end up blocking some of this area, and we need to do some site work there, so we plan on removing the yew hedge. And there is a like a wooden landscape timber wall there. We anticipate that when we excavate the site, that we're gonna find a lot of pieces of granite, because that was the building material that was used at the time to construct the mills. So we can use that granite to replace this wall with like a seat level wall. So if you're walking along here and you want to take a break, you could sit down with a rail on top to stop access from the trolley, but so that you could still see through it. So if you go on the boot mill property, they have, like right now it's like a white picket fence, or it's like a cream colored picket fence. I think we'd like to replace that with a similar type of green pipe rail that's surrounding the boot mill. So that would continue right along through here on top of the seat wall. And the details, because that's going to be a reclaimed product, I didn't want to say go from here to here. On the plan, I'm just identifying to use a mix of either the rail, the wall, or what materials you come up with to come along here. So I agree, there's a paucity of plantings, but we're trying to beautify the site with the building and the amenities there.
You're going to be using artificial turf on part of that courtyard area?
Yeah, you think about AstroTurf, you know, like if you've ever seen, it's not the kind of green carpet that you'd roll out on your deck after you haven't weatherproofed it for a while, or that type of thing.
You mean like the field turf?
Yeah, like field turf, similar to what's in like a athletic field.
Right.
And I've actually been in communities like on Cape Cod. My wife's family lives down there, and there was a few people in their neighborhood that actually installed a 100% synthetic turf lawn, and it's the best looking lawn in the entire neighborhood.
Yeah, really have.
It really is. Well, the Cape has problems with, it's all sand, so everybody's lawn dies. So I was thinking of the same thing here, and that's why we chose that, because if you plant grass here, it needs to be mowed, and we're in between the building, and it's shaded, so I was either gonna do a synthetic grass or a mulch or a stone mulch. So I thought it'd be better. I know when I was a college student, you know, lounging around outside is kind of part of your day, so providing areas for that was important.
Have you met with have there been meetings with staff about plantings and materials? Or is this so far just all coming from the applicant's end?
Well, we did discuss it in the roundtable meeting that we had, and I thought that the discussion we had was positive. The triple birch that we have here is similar to river birch that are along the canal. Because we have this grade wall here, we didn't want to pick trees that would have large expanding roots to break the wall. And just trying to create a more pedestrian-friendly landscape without, with what we have.
Okay, okay. We generally, we often can, in our decision, include a condition to finalize a landscaping plan with the staff. And so it's just generally in an applicant's interest to make sure they're talking with staff as early as possible and coming to a meeting of the minds about landscapings and plantings. So I just recommend that. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Ship. Mr. Malovich?
I've come a long way. I think you've addressed most of the concerns of the departments. I would like to see their last look at it, and you also have to tie up the loose ends on this privately developed ordinance, dormitory ordinance. I think it looks fine. I think you're in the right direction. I also, it adds a piece of, nobody has said this, but there used to be a mile of mills on the river, and even though there's a parking lot against the river, this will put another wall up there to add to that mile of mills, which was taken down in the 60s. So it is going to be a historic benefit too. But that's all I really have to say, Mr. Chairman.
I only have a couple of questions. I think most of it was covered by either staff or board members. What do you think your total number of students will be there?
438 beds.
Oh, okay, 438 beds. So would those be just for undergraduate students, or could graduate students stay there as well, I think? But you
Depends on
indicated
the
just-
interest, right?
Yeah, the graduate students, okay, so they would take either or, okay. I think, okay, so you meet with the fire department, and I got, okay, boom, boom, boom. The bike area, is that inside or outside of the area where you have this set up?
Inside, so because of the grade, we were able to develop a lower basement. and
Okay.
That will incorporate the mechanical rooms, you know, the sprinkler room and all that type of thing, trash, and a separate room for bicycles.
Okay. Any idea how many bikes that would store, or?
We were talking about that earlier, and,
I have some flexibility on that, so I don't have a number right now, but,
I'm sure you can set up somehow where you can hang some up or stack them differently to make them
That must be
fit,
a
yeah.
history.
But it's a good idea, I like the fact you have them inside, I mean.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I mean, safety reasons and well as, you know, weatherproofing them. We answered that. We answered that. Yeah, I don't think I have any further questions. I think the other board members highlighted most of the concerns. Actually, only other questions I had was, you went through, planning staff questions. Judy, does planning have any further questions or discussion as a result of what took place tonight?
No, actually, I am also very impressed with the time that they've been able to use to answer a lot of questions, because it's only been a few weeks, actually, and they've been able to turn things around pretty well. So, and I think also that it looks like there's not any outstanding issues that should be, that we can't resolve.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see anything
Mm-hmm.
that's not
Right.
insurmountable.
Okay. So the main thing would be, you'd have to get a new set of plans that they're gonna submit to us.
Yes, yes, so
Want
we
to at
would
least
get
have the
the,
opportunity to review those.
yes, we would get these plans, have them reviewed, and have everybody get a chance to, you know, look at the comments that they had first made and to review these plans.
Okay. So most likely then, we're gonna have to get the new set of plans and come back for a future meeting. I think.
Right, we figured that's where, you know, that's a possibility.
Okay.
I mean,
'Cause I think that the things that we hit on, and just if I miss anything, you know, with one, you know, once you submit the new set of plans, and then if, you know, then in the future, you have a chance to work with the water department, as you indicated, in the sewer and the fire department. Then you can put the residential unit management plan together, as well as the shuttle bus plan together. I think those are the major topics that I think most of the board members touched on.
Yeah, that covers.
And I think you addressed, you said you had most of the parking, but you might try to get a letter for additional parkings off-site? Is that how it was read, that you have the parking as needed, but you might get a letter for additional?
I think we have that letter.
Okay.
We have.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yes, we
So you could submit that as well? 'Cause I know you said you were gonna get the letter, but if need be, you could do that, but, yeah, I think the project is gonna look nice. I mean, going up there and looking at the piece of property now, by looking at it now, you can tell that, the hot tops have been digged up to the right and the left. Was that part of your guys' work on the project? To see
Yeah,
what was
that was
underneath
part
there?
of our geotechnical investigation.
Yeah.
We drilled and got refusal, and that's when we realized we need to dig a hole, and that's when we found all the rubble, so.
Okay. Yeah, I figured that had to have something to do with it, 'cause I even noticed, not like I go down there a lot, but after walking the site, you're like, oh yeah, this is new.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was us.
yeah, that's what I figured. Yeah, I think it'll be nice. I mean, it's a good location, along, you know, get the shuttle bus plan down, it'll tell us how that's gonna work, and then there's indicated the unit management plan, which I don't think will be difficult, especially if you've had experience with the, doing this, I mean, for doing something like this in the past. So, what's the wish of the board at this point in time?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make well, ask the applicant and DPD, does everybody feel we could get all of that addressed by the June 6th meeting? Would that work for?
How much time do you need to?
I think, yes, I think we can do it by then, yeah.
All right, let's do it.
Judy, does that seem to make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think your water and fire will be done pretty soon once you meet with them, right? You already have a scheduled meeting with them. So
We've met with water and fire, we need,
Yeah.
I'm gonna call them tomorrow morning and schedule the meeting.
And then we get the new set of plans, obviously, city departments will look those over as well. And then the other thing will be the bus shuttle plan in the residential unit. So if they could complete that by the June time date?
So with that, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to continue to the June 6th Planning Board meeting.
I'll second the motion.
Motion is made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Hearing, any opposition?
Yeah.
Hearing none, the motion carries to continue that. Good luck, and we
Right,
should,
thank you, we appreciate the
that works.
feedback
All
and
right.
appreciate your time, thank you. All right, well, think about, all right, Jeff.
Best place name in the city of Lowell, the worst.
That was, it's named the Wasteway because all the debris down the canal, drawing it, would go into that pond. And then it would drop in the
okay, moving along on the agenda, next matter is a pre-application.
Sir, I'm sorry.
We got the share, okay?
Oh, all right.
No problem.
Don't have enough?
Yeah, there we go.
All
But
right, that's fine.
I know it pretty well anyway, I know the, so we have a pre-application at 780 Roger Street, dash 12-24 Groton Street. The following individual has requested the planning board to provide a preliminary view of their proposed project at the address listed above. This is not a public hearing. The planning board will not render a decision related to the site plan, nor guarantee any future decision, whether positive or negative, on the project that receives a pre-application review. So can we hear from the applicant, please?
Yes, sir. My name is William Schneider. I'm with CEI Engineering. I'm a civil engineer representing NTB this evening. We actually had a meeting with some staff, development services, planning, fire department, traffic engineer, to talk about this. Geez, I think it was back in, might have been October, November, December last year, to go over kind of what we were proposing for this. We got a couple of comments then. We incorporated those comments into these plans. Still wanted to have a pre-app meeting here to get your input so that we could come back, we could design this according to something, so we don't have to keep coming back and hit the high points of your concerns. What we've got is a facility that's on Rogers Street. It's 5 parcels deep, and it's bounded by Village Street to the Well, the way the plan's set up, north kind of runs diagonally across the page. So on the west side is Village Street, and on the south side is Groton Street. Frontage is on Rogers. It's got a ball field on one side. There's a couple of residential uses in this zone, which is an RR zone. All the perimeter properties are all in the RR, which is regional retail. And across the street is Hannafin Supermarket.
McDonald's, yeah.
And McDonald's is directly across the street also.
Let me just ask you one question. Is this what a common gas station is?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's fine. I want to make sure.
That's it. This facility, the gas station actually.
Prime gas, yep.
Yeah.
USA Appliance.
That's it.
Yeah, they've changed it a couple times, but yep, okay.
The gas station actually takes the first 2 lots.
Right.
And then there's a residential use on the next lot, the 3rd lot deep. And then the 4th lot, and then there's a vacant lot back in there, and then there's another residential use further back in. The property owner, or the owners of the facility, actually own all 5 properties, I understand. That goes all the way back to the Holy Ghost Society, I believe, is their back boundary. Right now, we don't have any use for that back parcel. It's part of the purchase agreement. We don't show any development on there right now. I'm not exactly sure of all the details of the purchase agreement between NTB and the property owner. But all 5 are on the table right now. It's 0.91 acres, so it's just under 1 acre. Our development would take the first 5 parcels, which is 0.8 something acres that we would be working on. The facility itself is actually a 8-bay. It's about 6,500 square feet. It's got 8 bays all on one side, so you pull in and back out. So you don't pull all the way through the facility. You can see that there. There's some parking there. I think the parking requirements are calling for 2 per bay, which is about 16 spaces. There's approximately 30 some odd spaces on the site right now, plus dumpster facilities and ADA parking, those kinds of things that we're showing right now. Understand that during our initial conversation with staff that we might be overparked. We might be able to pull some of those parking spaces back out or do something with that, and we're willing to look at that. They have a certain number of spaces that they like to have available to them besides the 8 bays for overflow for the people who are waiting to get into the bays. We can obviously work on those numbers, whatever those need to be. Understand that we need a special permit because of the use in the RR. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, because this was back in November, December that we talked about this originally, but that we needed a special permit. And that was through the zoning hearing board, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, well, the special permit would go before the zoning board of appeals, correct? Yeah,
Right.
right. For the use in that zone. That
Correct.
wouldn't be, yes. So you need a site plan and special permit from the ZBA, right?
Excellent. I mean, that's pretty much it. There's not a whole lot to it at this point. We've put together a preliminary site plan and a preliminary grading plan just so that we could see how things would flow on the site. And then you also have a color elevation of what the building would look like.
How would you do your traffic flow? I mean, you're not gonna cut any more curb cuts? You plan on having them go out Village Street or go by to where the set of lights is now that's close by McDonald's or?
There's an existing curb cut on Rogers right in front there that was put in when MassDOT went through and widened out and took some right away a few years back, I guess. That existing curb cut would stay in play. We're talking to MassDOT about that right now, just to find out what would be involved with that. When the right of way was dedicated back to them, there was some sort of curb cut agreement or something with them. We have that documentation, but we're still looking at some other stuff on site. The other 2 entrances are actually further into Lot 3, towards the back, deeper into the site off of Village and Groton. So there'd be 2 access points. Right now, the site has full access off of both roads on the sides. Those would all be closed all the way back into the 3rd lot, and that's where the roadway would be, that would cut across. That gives you that cross access, that gives you the truck traffic that can get in there for deliveries. The garbage truck can get in there and get their thing in and out. That's current circulation.
How many story building, you think?
Just one.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if
Sure,
I may,
Mr.
just a
Bichette, go ahead.
question. Do you have any landscaping at all that you're thinking of?
We're not showing it right
Yeah,
here.
we're not showing any of it right now.
I'm just showing the site and grading at this point, but we have plenty of room for landscaping behind the building along Village. We're adding some additional landscape islands. They like to have some plantings. Actually, I think they show that in, yeah, they don't show it in this one. They like to have some landscape plantings towards the front of the building, and I think we have some room for that. Along Groton, there's also some green space, and then along the back of the
If you look at the
site.
McDonald's across the street, you know, a lot of time went into that.
That was
and
brought to our
if you
attention.
can kind of even mirror that, it really would be a nice, that would actually be a nice look on both sides. so.
Balance it off nice, yeah.
Exactly, so I would strongly urge you to look at what you can do with that.
You must have a good history of customer volume in a store like this, in other locations. I'd make sure you get that data together, because our traffic engineer's gonna
We did talk about that, absolutely.
take a strong look at that. I know on that street, it's very busy, and
Yes, sir.
So where would the front of the building be compared to where the pumps are now? Be
Right
closer
now,
to the street
the-
or back further, about the same?
Well, right now, the canopy kind of runs parallel with Rogers. This building would actually, the short side of the building would actually face Rogers, the long side would face Groton. Back side would be towards Village.
Yeah, with Kmart. and
Correct.
The bank and that area there, right?
Correct, yeah, the doors, the bays themselves would face towards the Kmart area. And the short side of that building that you see in the elevation there would actually be towards the front of towards
So that end
Rogers.
part of that building, how far back would that be from the street, you think? I mean, compared to, like, I say, where the pumps are now?
It's actually back quite a ways. There's
I
a
mean,
25-foot building setback shown, plus we've got 20-foot parking stalls, so it's at least 50-some-odd feet back. Oh, actually,
So you'd be further back?
28 plus 20 before you hit the building, so
All right, so you'd be a little ways back.
48 feet or so back before the
You'd be back a little
face.
ways from where the pumps are now then, yeah.
Quite a ways back from there, because they're pretty much right up along the sidewalk there.
No freestanding sign at all, you're just gonna use the building?
I believe we're just proposing the building. We did talk about that at the staff meeting, and they said if you were looking for a freestanding sign, a monument sign would probably be the only route to go, not a pylon sign or
Yeah, you're not gonna need it on that.
like the gas station has right now.
That works as a good sign. Speaks for itself.
Judy, did anything else come up in staff comments in the past? I know it's indicated by the applicant it's been a little while since you met, so, back in the fall, he said. So.
Yeah, the staff did have just an informal conversation about it, and we brought up the fact that they probably had more parking than what was required, and the issue with landscaping was also brought up.
Yeah. Because, you know, as you look to the left, you have the ballpark there and all the other facilities behind it, you know, the stadium's there, the softball field in the back, so obviously the landscaping would be nice to, you know, access to all that, you know, I mean, especially when you're looking out more towards Village Street, you know, where that's what our spinners used to play when they first started, before they moved downtown. Yeah, they played out there for 2 years first. Yeah.
It was.
That's how,
I would suspect the traffic impact would be far less than the gas station.
yeah. Probably.
It's mostly pass-by traffic. There's some destination traffic, but most people are doing that as they're going from one place to the next, trying to get this service done. You know, hey, I should stop, get tires, get my oil changed, whatever that looks like.
Now, I know the
Sometimes
company this big, NTB, I mean, I'm sure you do your survey for the need in the area, 'cause I know on Roger Street down a little further, you have a Hogan Tire, then if you look on Roger Street, as soon as you're over the Tewksbury line, you you have, what's it, Town Tire, which one is it?
Town Tire up
Yeah.
further in,
So, do you feel there's still enough need for that? I mean, I know you're close, but, I mean, the Town Fair one, I think, is the most recent of the two. Hogan Tire's been there a little longer. I mean,
Yeah, Hogan's been.
yeah.
I'm just the engineer.
That's actually, all right.
Good answer.
I'm MTB, I'm sure that run their numbers, but that's a good answer. I mean, hey, you know, because you're saying, you know, I hear you.
Yeah, I think from the point of view of the city and from the point of view of traffic circulation, it would really make me happy if the access was off of Village Street and Groton Street. If you didn't need to have that curb cut onto Rogers, that would be a good act. Certainly, where you've got that, you've got that agreement with the state for that curb cut, and if you wanted to keep the driveway apron type of sidewalk just to maintain your rights and everything, that would be great. But if it wasn't actually being used as your entrance there, that would make the project just better from the city's point of view, from the traffic point of view. Also, I like street trees. If you could have shade trees along your frontages, that would be wonderful. I noticed you got these nice planting areas, these wide areas for landscaping along Village and Groton. You don't show one along Rogers. At the back of the sidewalk, if there's
Sidewalk is a raised sidewalk through there currently, so there's a curb on Rogers' side and there's a curb inside that was put in. I'm not sure when that was put in. We were looking to maintain that, that access, that curb line through there, just for access to the ADA.
Yep, okay. If there's any room between the back of that curb and if you don't need all of that width for your driveway aisle, and I don't think you do, maybe you could get a planting strip back there.
Okay.
Or tree pits or something. But otherwise, works for me.
Oh, yeah, they got plenty of room here. Right now, I mean, the pump's gonna be up here, you have enough, you can have one car go by here. I don't think another car can fit between you and this car. You have to pass by. They do it.
One of these has a light, right? It's Village that has the light.
No,
No?
either one.
Neither one has a
Neither
light?
one is signalized.
They're both okay.
The entrance into the supermarket is actually signalized over by McDonald's for.
Yeah, that's what signal is, right, yeah. Because that's even past the bank.
I'm gonna have
Because
to
the bank
defer.
either comes in the back by Kmart, or they go out on Village, on Groton Street. Yeah. Most of them go in and out of Groton Street, but some pull in from behind Kmart, because there's an access way from the back. But most of that bank does go out through Groton. It doesn't go out through the set of lights.
How are you gonna handle the trash?
How's that, sir? I'm sorry?
How are you gonna handle your trash?
Well, we have a couple of, we have a dumpster and a tire storage area that are enclosed on the back side there. Put a concrete pad for whatever those pickups and deliveries are for recycling.
So you must have some area for oil waste that people come pick up and take off for oil
Correct.
changes, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
There's a do-it-yourself drop-off, so when the store is open, if you've changed the oil yourself and you need to get rid of the waste oil, you can bring that down there and they'll take that. They have a recycling center for that comes and collects all the used oil that they use, plus whatever the DIYs bring in, so.
Is there much, just sort of look, maybe truck traffic to service your site? And to go along with that, do you use a large trailer truck to replenish inventory? We've had some issues around the city, turnarounds and stuff like that, but I'm sure you don't anticipate anything.
They do have a delivery truck. It's rated as a WB50. So it's a 50-foot trailer, 50 to 53-foot trailer that brings their tires in for their deliveries. But it's not a very often delivery.
Yeah.
They can store somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,300 tires on site, I believe it is. Yeah, 1,300. It's on the elevation in the lower left-hand corner. I'm going to have to defer to the architect on that one. I don't know if this one is sprinkled or not, what the criteria is to trigger that. We did talk to the fire department at that meeting. They were okay with our circulation and the placement of fire hydrants in and around the area, that we didn't have to add an extra hydrant. But as far as fire suppression goes, we haven't crossed that one yet. And I work with the architect to make sure whatever that happens, I get the water to them so that they can include
As
it.
long as it meets the fire department's
Exactly.
requirements.
Yeah, that would be important as they get outside the oil storage.
The type of materials that you're handling requires any special service.
Correct.
How are you planning on handling the stormwater?
Well, that's an interesting challenge, actually. But we haven't really crossed that yet.
Okay, have you ever heard of porous pavement?
We have.
Okay, yeah, I would encourage you to think about that. Our city engineer is very favorable towards porous pavement.
Is that porous concrete, porous asphalt, or are these
Asphalt.
like porous pavers?
At asphalt,
Porous
porous
asphalt.
Yeah, oh, yeah, the pavers are nice, but, you know, commercial operation, automotive operation.
Actually,
like
I use them quite often in
Really?
Pennsylvania, yeah.
It's interesting.
For the parking stalls especially, they work quite well for that, because it's not a heavy traffic area, but then you use asphalt around that, and then stormwater flows to that for whatever perk. Although I don't know that we'll have a lot of perking water on this site, based on the old gas stations and the environmental concerns from previous things that are going on. I'm not sure how much water we're actually putting into the ground, which is why I'm a little wishy-washy about what I'm doing with stormwater right now.
I see.
Depends
You're
upon
gonna
how
have
our
to get in there.
environmental plays out, about what has been on the site, what we're gonna do with the site, and what we can do with our stormwater, because I don't wanna compound any environmental issues, so. But that's part of the purchase agreement, is a clean site that we get, or something that we can utilize. But we do have a stormwater ordinance. We've started going through that, but I say right now, until we get our environmental stuff hammered out, I don't.
What's your timeline on the project?
Yesterday.
Okay, that's.
No, if we can incorporate a lot of this stuff and we can get some more information, we had hoped to hear back more on the environmental side this week, actually. If things go, hopefully, the way we would like to see it, we would like to get our submittal in on the 20th, so that we could be back in June. But, you know, you always wish and you hope, and
Oh, you gotta wait and see.
so we'll see how we get there.
Sure.
Any other questions, or if not, we'll
All set.
see you when you do your submittal.
Excellent. I appreciate your input. It really does help me out a lot.
You're welcome, good luck.
Well, thanks for coming.
Sorry you get stuck in front of a dormitory, but.
You know, that's
Busy evening, huh?
the luck of the draw.
You're like-
Is it
Sometimes
normally a
people
10
say,
o'clock
"What-"
meeting, or?
Yeah, some people say, what date you put me on? Let me see the agenda first. Good night, thank you. Okay. Okay, moving along to any of the board members have any updates?
Historic Board, we still haven't settled on a date for this month, but we will be addressing the dormitory project.
Oh, okay.
And I imagine that will move along the next couple of days,
Okay.
now that this hearing is over. That's all.
No more, no other comments from the board? No, members? Okay. Entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes, good night, and we adjourn. Thank you, everyone. 10:10, not too bad.
Oh, boy.
Move through the first two like crazy.